What should I introduce you as? Do you have a title that you want me to say?
I don't
Should I
think
say
I do.
student at Carroll College? Or
It's,
just student?
it's Carroll University.
Oh yeah,
But
is it university?
yeah, you can
Or like,
introduce
what are
me.
you going for?
I'm going for PPE, which is oh my god, look at this mess I'm making. Philosophy, politics, and economics. So you can do with that information what you will.
Okay.
How about you surprise me?
Okay.
You just introduce me, and I'll just
How do you say your last name?
Endress.
Endress.
Yes.
I was always thinking it was like Andres.
Yeah, everybody does that. It's almost entirely phonetic.
Yeah.
Endress. Like technically, if you were to do it fully phonetic, it'd be Endress. But Endress, same thing. Everybody who says like Enders, Andreas, Andress, it's terrible.
Welcome to the Regular People Podcast. I'm Wade Allen, and today I'm joined by Caden Endress. He is a philosophy, politics, and what was the last one?
Economics.
Economics
Yeah.
student. And we're going to be talking about a wide variety of topics today.
Yep.
But first, before we actually talk about anything, just so the listener has a better idea of like who you are, what have you been doing with the past like 5 years of your life?
Oh wow, that's a big. See, usually people ask me like, "What have you been doing lately?" And I struggle with that question because it seems like there would be easy answers to that, but I never know what I'm doing lately. Over the past 5 years, though, let's see. Well, I graduated high school because I'm going into my sophomore year at Carroll. So I've been
Quite the young boy.
yeah. I turned 20 in a few days, so that's kind of exciting.
What day?
The 18th. So
I know so many people with August birthdays.
yeah, I feel like
You
I do
included.
too. I suppose Valentine's Day though. No, that's 6 months.
It's a short gestation.
Yeah, I forgot how pregnancy works. That's fine. But no, like I've been doing a lot of things, I guess. Just the things high schoolers do, I suppose. I've had jobs, and I met Wade working a job. That was always a good time. I had an internship with the Wisconsin Conservation Voters for about 2 years. I started that the summer after my senior year of high school, and I continued that for all of my first year of college. And that was pretty enjoyable. We did I started at the Green Bay office, and we were just doing a number of things. I think the coolest thing we worked on though was we did this we collected a bunch of data from people in the Brown County area about how they felt about a variety of green things, so having better public transit, having better agricultural standards and stuff like that. And then we used the data and responses we got from that to sort of develop a report for politicians in the Brown County area. So like for multiple cities in Brown County, as well as like the Brown County Board, and delivered that. So that was kind of cool, and that was kind of, I feel like, the most impactful thing we did there.
What did they do with that?
They read it, and the idea was that they would possibly, they could have, some of the Republicans probably did, but the idea was that they read it and that they would use that then to craft some laws, because the idea, right, is that politicians are supposed to be for the people, and they're supposed to do things that the people want. So if you deliver them information that says, hey, a lot of your constituents would really like you to have better public transit, have curbside compost, more electric car charging stations, then that they will do that if they want to be reelected. The local politics level, that's generally, I think, more effective, because I think like, United States Senator is only kind of like partially indebted to their constituents, whereas like local like board officials, I think it's a lot more close to home. Like you can go visit your local board member and harass them if you so choose. So
Yeah. But then how many people actually vote for the local stuff?
mostly old people, unfortunately. But I suppose at the same time though, most of the people who fill out our surveys are also the people who vote in local elections, right?
So did you seek out old people?
We didn't seek out old people, but as it turns out, a lot of the people whose contact information we have is old people, and a few middle-aged and young people who are kind enough to fill out our surveys when we bug them about it. But again, the way I feel about it is like, if you're bothered enough to fill out a local survey about how you feel about green transitioning, you're probably bothered enough to vote in local elections.
Well, did you go to the people with these surveys, like physically?
I wasn't actually with the conservation voters when they
But
distributed them.
But like somebody was there, like giving this stuff to people. Because imagine that is kind of different then. Because if somebody's coming up to you with a thing you fill out, you might feel strongly about it, but do you feel strongly enough to actually move yourself physically to the voting stations later?
So no, because what it was is it was like sent out in an email. Because what I had to do initially was there was this big awful Excel sheet where I had to like sort responses, you know, by positive or negative feedback. Because people just write things in as well as check boxes, you know, it was a mixture. So it was like a form people filled out. But I don't know, like I feel like most people don't feel bothered enough to write out answers on a survey that they're sent in an email. Like, I don't know. Maybe you have a different opinion, but that's how I feel. I feel like most people don't do that stuff. And we didn't get a lot of responses either. I think we had like 50 or 60. I guess that's my line of reasoning. Is that if you're bothered enough to...
Yeah, you're probably more likely to be voting.
Yeah, like I'm not saying it's like exact. But
I feel like when I ask the question, what have you been doing with the last 5 years of your life? People seem to so far be taking that mostly to mean what have you been doing professionally. Do you think that's implied in the question? Should I rephrase that question?
That's a good point. Well, I think it's more that people feel the need, because they don't want to like undersell themselves. Maybe it's that people don't think that anybody cares about their personal lives.
Yeah.
Like when someone asks you what you're doing, especially like if you say over the last 5 years, that sounds super like interview-esque.
I guess it does.
And so people are thinking like, all right, what are my accomplishments that I've made? What have I been doing to better the world or myself?
Yeah. Because I mean, I guess I'm interested in people's professional lives, but I'm also kind of asking like,
yeah,
how have you changed as a person?
Oh man, I've changed so much. I think that's because it's that stage in your life though where you do change a lot, you know, from high school to adulthood. Like for example, okay, so like when I went into, this is kind of funny. When I was in like 8th grade and 9th grade, I was like, me and my friends were like these kids, right, where we listened to, we really liked like old hip hop, like in the 90s, you know, like Tupac and Biggie, and we were of the opinion that that was the only good kind of music. Like modern rappers were trash, every other kind of music was bad. Like that was my whole personality, right? No, yeah, it was really funny and weird. But like, you know, you're like, you know, a young lad, so it's like, you know, it is what it is. That was like most of that. And then like, I don't know, freshman, sophomore year, I started getting interested, you know, because like you kind of like are interested in what your friends are interested in, you know, you guys kind of grow together, you know, like a cute little
birds
flock.
of a feather flock together.
Yeah, I never heard that, but yeah.
You've never heard that?
No.
Oh, it disturbs me actually.
That I've never heard that?
No, the saying itself disturbs me.
Why?
Anyway, continue.
Yeah, sorry, I'd like to revisit that, but yeah. So, anyways, and so then I started getting into like fashion and stuff like that.
In what way?
Like
were you making clothing? Like
some of my friends were.
That's cool.
Yeah, which was kind of cool, and some of them still do. So I was getting into that, you know, just like looking at like cool clothes, you know, and buying them and looking at stuff, you know, that kind of thing. And that was like pretty much most of high school. And then like senior year, I started getting a lot more interested
into hard drugs.
Yes. No. I got more interested in like, you know, politics and like things that matter in the world, you know, and affect people. And so I started. Well, the other thing too was that because I'd kind of like I was always kind of like, you know, not really too sure what I wanted to do after high school. But I'd always been loosely interested in politics. So senior year, I not only got really into politics, I got really into like actually trying in school because
I never got into that.
Well, so, yeah, right. Well, so I kind of suffered from like that thing that people talk about on Twitter all the time, where like when you're in elementary school and you're like slightly above average, everyone treats you like you're super smart because like you read at a higher reading level or whatever. Yeah. You know, so I had that whole thing going on in elementary school and middle school. And so I get to high school thinking like, oh, I don't have to try. You know, I never had to try at school. You just kind of do it. You get decent grades. Well, you had to kind of try a little bit in high school, which I found out. I realized that if I wanted to actually go to like a half decent college, I should probably, you know, really crack down my senior year because I actually want to do something with my life, you know? And like I always knew that I wanted to do something with my life. I just didn't know. I wasn't making the connection, you know. I was more concerned.
Are there many people who think I don't want to do anything with my life?
Well, actually, I don't know. I read something on Reddit the other day about a guy who was like, he genuinely like just wanted to. The ideal way of living for him would be living in his mom's basement and just like hanging out, playing video games, doing whatever. Like he said, he just literally didn't like adult life. There was a lot of upvotes.
I mean, there's something to be said for that. Just kind of living in the moment, enjoying what you got.
Yeah. Like he wasn't interested in working. He didn't really like.
Oh, who is?
Huh?
Never mind.
Anyways, so it's kind of a tangent, but like yeah. So I sort of
okay.
like,
I see what you're saying.
Actually, putting an effort in on my schoolwork, and that worked out shockingly enough. And that's actually kind of how I ended up at Carroll, was because I didn't really know what I wanted to major in.
What did you decide?
Well, I initially wanted to do political science, right? But the issue was a lot of people were like, well, what are you going to do with political science? You're going to teach it? And I didn't really want to be a teacher. And so I was trying to look for something more applicable, you know, maybe double major. I knew economics. I just kind of knew it was kind of generally fairly useful for a lot of things. And so I was looking for like degrees relating to politics and economics, and I found PPE, and I thought it was like the coolest thing in the world because philosophy is awesome. Economics is useful for politics, and so is philosophy and all that stuff. So I just typed in, you know, Wisconsin schools with PPE, and Carroll's the only one.
The only one?
Yeah, in Wisconsin. It's only at a few schools in the country, but at like in England, it's pretty popular. Like Oxford University, like there's a lot of people who do PPE.
Go there for your graduate.
Maybe I should. Is it? I feel like it's expensive though. I suppose if I do well in college though, I could get some grants because my high school record is gonna get me anywhere. It's really bad. Like I had a 2.5 for the first 3 years, and then senior year when I actually started like putting an effort in, I had all A's, so that bumped it up to like 2.77. But even then, like that's nothing special. And my ACT was like just kind of half decent. So
did you score better than the average monkey?
I did. I got a 25.
That's only what? 7 points better than the average monkey?
Oh, I thought you meant that like metaphoric, like you were referring to the average American as the average monkey.
No,
you mean, literal
monkeys.
Get 18?
I think so.
I know some people who got like 12.
That's worse than random.
That's really funny. Actually, I didn't know that. I know like a lot of people.
I might be off by a few points, but
I know a lot of people who scored like around 18 or lower. Well, not a lot, but I like a fair number.
Yeah, like you can get an 18 by just guessing. For every
That's so bad. And what's sad about that is the average for like an American student is 20. That's really unfortunate.
I'll have to double check that one. So listener, don't take that as a
maybe take
complete
that with
knowledge.
Salt.
Look it up yourself and find out what the number is. But still,
it's
monkeys do pretty well.
Good for them. Speaking of monkeys, I actually learned something the other day about a lot of coconut milk actually isn't vegan.
Is it monkey milk?
Well, it's not monkey milk, but it's monkey sourced milk. Like in Thailand, pretty much any coconut milk you get from Thailand, like all the companies there use monkeys to get the coconuts from the trees. Like they use monkey labor, which I didn't know was a thing, but they use monkey labor. And so like I haven't really gotten around to like figuring out where you can get ethically sourced coconut milk. But yeah, no, like technically speaking, like all the stuff from Thailand and a lot of the stuff from other Southeast Asian countries, they use monkey labor.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, well, this is why Reddit, I think, is a great app because I learned so much.
Yeah, I feel like you learn stuff on Reddit, but then half of it is actually not true.
No, but I looked it up.
Well, yeah, that's good. Like you see something on Reddit, you look it up in a different source. But
yeah.
If you just look at Reddit only, then I feel like you're pretty misled.
Yeah, I think it's a better source for information than Facebook is, but no less, you should still.
And Reddit still annoys me because it's that whole like forming like a echo chamber for yourself.
Echo chamber, yeah.
So even if you don't have an account or you aren't signed into your account and you look at it like through your IP address or your specific phone, Reddit will still track what you like and what you spend time looking at. So it'll still form specific. It'll still show you specific things based off of a sort of
well, are you talking about like on like the trending page? Because I stay on my homepage with it has the subreddits I'm in. But I feel like if you make an active,
you could like specifically join subreddits, and then those are going to be the ones that show up. But even if you don't do that and you just don't log in and you just look at stuff, it'll learn from what you look at and show you more of that.
Yeah, which makes
really
sense.
Annoys me.
Yeah, well, but you could also just. If it annoys you, does it annoy you because you're worried about other people getting misinformation, or does it annoy you because you want?
I'm like it's making me get like misinformation, or like because if you only see something of a certain subject,
and
then you see that more and more, it seems like it's more of a thing in reality than it actually is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're always getting shown like catastrophic news. And it shows you more of that because that's what you click on. Yeah. So it seems like the world is more.
Yeah, that's there's
more and more like horrible
term for that. It's something biased, but yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. But I also feel like though you could still make an effort though to not have that problem by just joining a variety of subreddits.
Yeah, it's still like all these websites are still trying to form. I can't think of a whole lot of words.
Algorithm.
Right now. Yeah, it's like an algorithm. It's like you've got your profile and it's trying to most like show you best what you're going to click on. And then it's always like updating itself, so it's always trying to like pigeonhole you into what you've liked before and show you more of that. Like you can make efforts to avoid that, but it's still gonna follow you. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like it's always gonna be at least a few steps behind you, like trailing you all this like, hey, you like this because you've seen it before.
Do you also have that problem with Google? Do you wish they didn't do that?
Yeah, Google.
Do you use DuckDuckGo?
I mean, no, I still use Google because in a lot of ways it is helpful because, if you are thinking about a certain subject and you type in things like that don't explicitly have to deal with that subject, it knows to show you stuff like that because you have been looking it up in the past day or two. So like if you're, I don't know, looking for a specific...
Dogs.
Yeah, if you're looking for like dogs, you could type in I don't know, a type of breed of dog. Like you could type in, I don't even know any breeds of dogs. This is a bad example.
Yeah, no, I'm really bad at that. Labradors. That's a breed, right?
Sure. Or like a dog that like, say, is the name of a car and the name of a dog.
Oh.
If you've been looking up a lot of dogs,
Mm-hmm.
you just type in that word without the word dog there. It'll show you the dog version, but not the car version.
Yeah, like say there's a dog called like a Chevy dog, and you want to find the Chevy dog, not a Chevy car.
You only have to type in Chevy because you've already been searching dogs before.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
So it learns and it shows you relevant information because it guesses at what you're actually trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
That's helpful. It's also like annoying when you're trying to find out things that like are different from what you've just been looking at, such as like scientific research or like any information that like is trying to combat like confirmation bias. Mm-hmm. Google's trying to, and all these other search
kind of eliminates that.
They like put you into your confirmation bias even more.
Yeah,
so it's harder to find.
They
like,
kind of force you into an echo chamber. I see what you mean. Yeah.
For instance, like if you have been looking at like all these reasons why veganism is horrible, and then all of a sudden you want to find one reason why it's good. Good luck.
You're gonna have to dig. Yeah. No, that's true.
Like it's helpful in some ways, but it's a real drawback in others. How they all try to customize it to you specifically instead of just looking at what's the totality of what's there. You know?
Yeah, that's true. I definitely see that as an issue with like a lot of like the access we have to like kind of infinite information nowadays.
Yeah, and I mean I get it. It's.
But I think if you're really trying to look for something in good faith, you'll find it.
Yeah, it just takes more effort.
Yeah, well, and the other problem too is a lot of people aren't looking for things in good faith. They just want to confirm what they believe.
Yeah, and I get the problem too because like with a search engine you have basically infinite information, and most of it is garbage, or most of it is not helpful to you for what you're looking for. So then, if there's a certain article that most people click on, that'll be put up to the top of the list on your search. And even if that's not what you were looking for, that's going to show up because most other people look at it too. So it's like, of all the tons and tons of information that's here, this is what was used most often, so we're going to put it to the top all the time, even if it's not actually what you need to find right now.
Yeah, and it really sucks too when it's like poorly written articles with just like a clickbaity title.
Yeah.
I hate clickbait. It just grinds my gears.
Yeah.
I think it's so dumb.
Yeah, and that's kind of something I've seen a lot personally on Reddit. Like there are shared articles, and then like the person writes the title, like this happened, and then you actually read the article, and it's like,
well, not quite.
Yeah, it didn't really happen the way you've said it. And a lot of people, me included, half the time, will see those like little Reddit posts about articles, and I don't really care enough to actually read the whole article, so I just see the headline, and then I try to think like intentionally like that's probably not exactly what happened, but even still just your exposure to all these headlines kind of informs what you actually believe. Right.
Yeah, you'll just kind of like passively be like, oh, like, if it aligns with you what you already believe, you're going to be like, oh, that's true. Because generally I'm not going to click on it either unless I find it to be so egregious that I need to share it with somebody,
or so fascinating that like I need to read more.
Well, like because I saw an article on Twitter the other day that the headline was claiming that ICE was electing to simply just not test the immigrants being detained because if they tested them, they knew that they'd have some positive cases, and they don't have the housing capabilities to isolate those who test positive.
For coronavirus?
Or for coronavirus. So instead of like, testing people and trying to find a solution to house these people, they just chose not to test. And I'm like, you're kidding me. So I clicked on the article and I read it, and that was in fact what was happening.
So it was the case? The headline was correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's because I was like, I looked at that and I was like, no way. Like there's got to be a silver lining here. That's misleading. And I read it, and that's exactly what they were doing. They're like, well, we don't have like, any way to really isolate these people. So instead of like, being creative or requesting more funding to isolate the people who tested positive for coronavirus, we're just going to not test anyone.
I mean, isn't that really the stance of America as a whole?
No, yeah. I guess it doesn't necessarily.
Just don't test people and there's no cases?
Yeah. I thought I glanced at something earlier that was mentioning about how like Trump had wanted to just like not test people.
Yeah, or no, cases will go down.
Yeah, well, no, it was about how hospitals were instructed to like not report positive cases to the government. Oh my God. Donald Trump really like, you'd think it would stop surprising me the things he does and says, but it doesn't. He never ceases to amaze me. And then people who support Donald Trump will like almost always say it's like, oh, the economy or oh, trade. It's like, oh, okay, so even if we say that Donald Trump is the sole reason for the good economy and an allegedly good trade deal, like that's more important than human rights and climate change and a lot of other terrible things that he does. I mean, come on.
Well, climate change isn't real. Everybody knows that.
Just people who tell me that, I have to.
I mean, I feel like the average Trump supporter is probably a climate change denier.
Probably.
Or at least maybe they say it exists, but it's not caused by man.
Yeah. There's a really good subreddit I'm in called Ask a Trump Supporter, where when things happen, people just ask a Trump supporter, and you get to hear a lot of interesting takes. Some of the people on there I've actually found are really smart and insightful, and others are just like, wow. It's a mixed bag. Yeah, but my girlfriend's dad doesn't believe in climate change. And
have you or her made any efforts to like?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Show him that it's real?
I did it once. She does it all the time because she lives with him. It was actually kind of bad because the first time I'd kind of like really sat down and met her family. This was like 2 years ago,
he
right?
Just starts talking about climate change.
Well, so it was for her birthday dinner at this Thai restaurant, and she told her parents ahead of time, please, because she knew that I'm, a liberal. Her parents are Republicans, and she said, please don't talk about politics at the table. I just want to have a nice time. And she told me the same thing. Well, apparently when we got there, we found out, like Emma and I had found out that I guess her mom's cousin was also coming for some reason. And she's like, because, there's Republicans and then there's like diehard Trump supporters. Like, I think you can draw a line, right? And she's like the diehard Trump supporter type, right? And I sit down and I swear to you, this woman didn't ask me what my name was. She didn't ask me what school I go to, what I like to do. The first thing she ever said to me was, how do you feel about Trump? I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And I'm thinking like, okay, well, I can't lie to this woman. Like, I'm not gonna lie. But I just want to talk. So I said, man, that kind of sounds like a loaded question. I'm not really sure how to answer that. And that's kind of how the ball got rolling. And it delved into this whole thing the whole time we talked about politics. Because her dad was saying like, oh, there was this scientific study and they found that the glaciers are actually, they're getting bigger. And he showed me the study, and there was a study. And the two things I would just say on that was, first, the scientist who did the study was worried that when he released it, climate change deniers would use it to deny climate change. And secondly, another report just came out that I saw a headline for like a week ago, that the glaciers in Antarctica are melting faster than they're growing. So yes, in some parts they are growing, but overall it's shrinking more so.
So it was like just pointing out a small instance of... Yeah,
like there's a small instance somewhere in Antarctica where the glaciers are increasing in size.
Yeah.
But overall, they're losing more than they're gaining.
I think that's a common thing among climate change deniers, is like ignoring the overall trend.
Yeah,
and pointing
anecdotal
out
evidence.
Things.
I find the same thing with people who are very anti-immigration, is they'll point out anecdotal evidence of why immigration is bad for the economy. But like a meta-analysis will show you that it is overall generally good for the economy. Like I saw I was listening to a debate the other day where they were talking about it. It was between Vosh and Sargon of Akkad, right? They were supposed to, I didn't like the debate because I think Vosh was being very like combative, which kind of annoyed me because he was making good points, but he was covering that up with like attacking Sargon like violently, basically. But the whole thing, like when they were talking about immigration, was like a big sticking point for Sargon was that like Vosh was pointing out that like the meta-analysis, shows that immigration is good for the economy on essentially all fronts. And the only economic loss that you see is there is a 2% average decrease in wages for like extremely low level workers. And so Sargon was saying that like he doesn't care what everything else is. Any loss for like the bottom tier of society is a bad thing. And it's like, I understand where he's coming from, especially because like when you're in extreme poverty, any loss of wages is a big deal, right? But 2% is pretty marginal. And granted, he would say, well, 2% is 2%. But Vosh was trying to say that like, because overall the economy does much, much better, it's not just a 2% increase, that it will still affect those low wage workers positively because of like, lower prices and stuff like that or something.
I mean, that's kind of reminds me of the whole trickle-down economics thing.
And I was thinking the same thing. He was basically just, he did seem to be describing trickle-down economics. It's not a topic that I am well versed in enough to say whether or not that it is definitely trickle-down economics or it's just like, of the same vein. But no, I see what you're saying because it does sound like trickle-down economics.
It's not quite the same because it's not like giving money to rich people. It's like giving money to most people, kind of.
Yeah, because it's essentially, instead of saying give money to the top of society and it will trickle down to the bottom, it's saying give money to society as a whole and it will affect. So I suppose it makes more sense than trickle down.
Yeah, it still just had slight vibes of that to me.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, no, I see where you're coming because I had the same idea, yeah.
Is there any limit to this effect with immigration? Because that's something people are often worried about, is like, how many people should we allow into the country kind of thing. So if the economy improves because of immigration, is there a turning point like where that's no longer true? Like if you have...
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, yeah. I don't know. I don't, because so immigration is kind of one of those things where like, because you can really only educate yourself deeply on a handful of issues unless you really dedicate a lot of your time to just knowing about everything. And so immigration is one of those things where I haven't really ever felt super passionate about, so I haven't taken the time to know much. So frankly, I don't know, but if I had to guess, I would say no. I mean, I don't see why. Like, what would be a problem with having like just unlimited immigration?
Well, I mean,
because I haven't thought this through very well, so we can just talk about this.
Yeah, sure.
Because you could be right. I don't know.
I mean, I'm not really anti-immigration.
I
would say I'm not quite all the way liberal with immigration. Definitely not all the way right. It's probably somewhere in the middle.
Dirty centrist.
I think immigration is good, but I feel like it should be limited too.
Yeah.
Because I guess the worry is like if you don't have a cap, say on a yearly basis, if you don't have any cap of how many people you're going to let into your country from other countries, then like the volatility of the social changes or economic changes can't really be controlled, or not like controlled as well. So like say if you're only going to let in 10,000 refugees into your country this year versus if you're going to let in an unlimited number, the society will look really different the following year.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening in like Germany or France.
That's true.
Is like the expectation is in the next like 20 years, France will be a Muslim majority country.
That's interesting.
Yeah, which does worry me.
Why?
Well, religion itself is a problem in my eyes.
No, that's true. Okay.
And I don't think of all religions, Islam is a particularly great one.
Yeah.
I don't think Christianity is a great one either.
Yeah.
So really, like right now, France is a pretty atheist country.
Yeah.
So it going from heavily atheist to heavily Muslim doesn't really strike me as a good thing. So just like if the Netherlands went from heavily atheist to heavily Christian, I would be like, that's not good.
I see what you mean. I want to bounce back on the immigration thing in the U.S. real quick, and then I want to talk about that because that's interesting. So I agree with what you're saying, though, with like, if we get too many refugees, especially like financially speaking, that costs money to give them a lot of, because generally refugees aren't coming here wealthy. They're refugees, they don't have any money. So like, I think unfortunately it's used as sort of like a deflection by a lot of Republicans, because an easy solution to this would be to stop spending so much money bombing these countries or supporting the militias that are bombing these countries so that we don't have to pay for these refugees. Because now we're just paying twice. We're paying for the bombs, then we're paying for the refugees. You could just not pay for either.
Well, and I think they would like to pay for the bombs and then not allow the refugees in.
Well, I know that's what they want to do.
So they want to pay once.
They want to blow up the brown people and get the oil. That's fine. I don't agree with it. Like if that's your, like I think if that is your take on it, I think that's awful. Yeah. But at least be honest about it, because they won't tell you that.
They don't.
But that's what they're doing, So that's interesting, because I agree with you that I think religion is bad, Islam is bad. But do you think though that the institutions that France has in place would really allow religion to? Because I can see if religion permeates their culture, whatever, I guess. Because my primary concern is religion permeating the government, but I think that they have good enough institutions that they would be okay.
Well, that's the thing that happens is, I mean, it might not become a theocracy or anything, but it's like if you have a large influx of people from a different culture, no matter what that culture is, coming into a voting district, that voting district changes in favor of, that large influx of people. So if those people coming in are a lot more conservative and like intolerant of maybe like gay people,
that's true.
Then you're like the laws in your society start to change in favor of eliminating gay people, which has been happening in these refugee territory areas in like Scandinavian countries.
I think that a position that people don't take often enough, but they should, especially in France, because I think you make a good point, is that we should be radically pro-refugee and helping people who are impoverished, while also being radically against religion. Like I'm okay with helping you, but like at the same time, I do have, because I share that concern, right, where I don't want them voting away gay rights, like that would be bad, and other, just stupid traditional values generally.
And that's why I think like the centrist idea was to allow refugees, but allow them in like limitation, because then the idea is instead of having a like large group of people with different ideas than you have coming in and changing your legislation all at once. You have them come in slowly, and by them like being in less numbers, like if a bunch of Americans are going to go to France, we'll start spreading our like obesity.
Yeah.
So to stop the spread of obesity in France, you have to keep like you have to limit the amount of Americans coming in, so that they will become more like French people than stay like Americans. You know, the assimilation kind of thing.
Yeah. So okay.
So if you allow whole like swaths of Americans to come into France all at once, they'll like have strength in numbers kind of thing, and like they won't really change their beliefs at all because they're backed up by all the people they came with. And then, you know, you get those like areas of towns that are just entirely one group of people, which I mean is never good. It's like self-imposed segregation.
Yeah.
So if you just allow people to come in like in the smaller numbers, they'll blend in with the rest, and it'll become more of a melting pot idea rather than just like strict borders. Like this is anti-gay town.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. That's interesting because the assimilation thing is something that I'm not sure where I stand on, because on one hand, I don't want to tell anyone, you know, like, well, if you live here, you can't have your culture.
No, I think the thing is it's not forced assimilation. You're not
like we did with the Native Americans.
Yeah, you're not telling anybody to do anything. It's just like natural assimilation. Just the fact that you are surrounded by more people who are not like you than people who are like you. Yeah, you become part of them. So it's not like I'm saying you're going to go to jail unless you start accepting gay people in your neighborhood. So it's just the fact that you are the minority in your neighborhood, so you have to adapt to the pre-existing majority. Do
you think this should be true for any time a refugee is entering, or just an immigrant period is entering any new area? Like, are you saying we should try to keep the culture of every country regardless of the culture? Or are you just saying you like France's culture and you don't want specific cultures changing?
I think it'd be definitely a case-by-case basis where you look at like the pros and cons of the pre-existing culture.
Yeah, because I think cultures can definitely be bad. Yeah, I think people often don't want to say that, like, oh, that culture sucks, but like, some cultures like to stone people, which I don't know, but I just feel like that's bad. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, that's totally true, and like, there's definitely times where an influx of immigrants could probably change a culture for the better, and that's probably happened plenty of times. Yeah, but like with that, you have to acknowledge that the reverse happens too. And you have to ward against that.
Yeah, no, totally. The thing about cultures, that reminds me. So like a month ago, I was getting really into reggae music for a while. I listened to a lot of reggae because like it's good music, right? And I'm thinking like, man, they're just, you know, they're either just like super chill or like they're trying to start a political revolution. Both of those things I think are cool. And I'm like, you know, I'm thinking, okay, reggae is heavily associated with like Rastafarianism, right? And so I was like, all right, well, let me look into this. So I looked into Rastafarianism, and so from what I understand is the big thing is that it's about like they believe that like all black people should sort of like, you know, eventually go back to Africa. Really? Yes, which sounds really racist if you're not black. Like, oh yeah, I think black people should go to Africa back to
like if a white person thought that same thing, yeah, it would be racist.
Yeah, which and that wasn't really even my point of contention. My point of contention was that as a white person, holding that belief just seems strange to me, and like it doesn't even seem like my place. Like, I don't care if you want to go back to your homeland. If you want to, good for you. If you don't, fine. So that just seemed like a weird thing for me to do. And also, apparently it's like super patriarchal, you know? Yeah. Like the man is the breadwinner, all that kind of stuff. And so then I was like, okay, so maybe, you know, I won't get into Rastafarianism. But, you know, but I looked into it. And another thing, too, that I think also has to do with like the heavy, you know, patriarchal values that Rastafarians hold is in Jamaica. You know, you'd think it's a pretty chill place, but they're like violently anti-gay there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
people get beat up in the streets by mobs.
Yeah, I never really thought of Jamaica as a chill place.
Really?
It's got a high murder rate.
Does it really? See, I didn't know that. Well, I guess I kind of always have this like idealistic image of Jamaica where it's just a bunch of, you know, dudes in dreads like smoking weed and, you know, tapping the bongo drums, which is obviously like obviously untrue, but that's just, I don't know, the belief I held in my head.
Sure, and there are those guys, and then there are also people who murder people.
Yeah. So it's it was shocking to me to find out.
I mean, that's not to say America's much better. We've got a high murder rate too. This isn't a great country either.
Yeah, but what's interesting, speaking of like comparative like countries, because I'm in a subreddit, just keep talking about Reddit here, like where people just post unpopular opinions, and somebody had mentioned that comparatively speaking, America is not a very racist country.
To like all other countries?
No, not to all other countries, but to other first world countries, so to speak. Right, because obviously, like, you know, some very rural countries are going to be pretty bad. But...
Racist in belief or racist in effect?
Because racist in culture.
Because I feel like if you look at like Scandinavian countries, they could seem racist in effect because they are like white predominant. Yeah. But I would find it hard to believe that they're actually like hold racist values. It's just more of a circumstantial thing. Whereas America seems more likely to, the average citizen actually holds racist values than.
But is that just because you live here and you experience racist? Be. Yeah, because I think the point that the author was making, and they linked a bunch of sources that I didn't click on. Okay. I saw the blue text. I was like, okay, there's a source.
There are sources.
Yeah. I don't know if the source is like Fox News or whatever, but it's a source. But the point they were making, right, is that like most of the people in America, because America is really diverse too, compared to a lot of like European countries, are generally actively like, even if, because obviously like the author wasn't denying, and nor am I, that pretty much all Americans hold inherent racial bias, and we do have racist institutions, and we still do have problems, and like we have room to improve in terms of race relations. But comparatively speaking, like it would be unfair to say that America is like the most racist country on earth. Like our culture is extremely ready to try to be non-racist.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's the most racist country on earth.
Yeah, like think about it. There's no strong Black Lives Matter movement in like really any other European country.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Also, is it so? But is it as necessary in those countries?
Well, that's a good point. And I guess I don't know because I don't know enough about European politics. From what I've heard, though, is the British media is like super awful. Like they're super racist.
Yeah,
they're super just like not.
A lot of the right wing British. Boris Johnson guys.
Yeah, Boris Johnson's hair is so funny.
I don't know what his hair looks like.
You ever seen his hair?
I probably have. I can't conjure it in my mind.
It's in a constant. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't like draw the shape of it, but it's just in a constant state of disarray. And it's like it's not like Bernie's hair where Bernie's not bald.
Bernie doesn't have hair basically. He has a little bit.
But yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like Bernie's hair is messy, but it's because there's not much. Yeah. Boris Johnson has a full head of hair, and he will walk out with just like a tuft sticking up. I don't think the man owns a comb. Trump's
hair is pretty crazy too.
No, but I feel like he tries though. Like it's only crazy in the wind. To be fair, Trump's hair
is purposefully crazy.
No. I think it's. I despise Donald Trump.
But his hairstylist is.
I don't think his hairstyle is good, but I'm saying it's well maintained. I mean, he combs it over, right? Yeah. And it stays at a consistent length. In the wind, obviously, it looks bad. Everybody's hair looks bad in the wind, right? Unless you have short hair, of course. But my point is Donald Trump will comb his hair and keep it like well kept and like cut. Boris Johnson's hair is a jungle. Like if you try to get it'd be like trying to comb dreads. I don't think you could do it.
Yeah, I think that's the point. So, you have to not comb them for like a year.
Yeah. I think to get dreads, you don't brush your hair.
I think there's actually some specific things you have to do.
I think you're supposed to twist it.
Your hair can dread like unintentionally.
Yeah. You just get kind of like, nappy looking locks.
Yeah, like you realize, you've got a strand of dread in your hair because, I don't know.
I can't imagine just not brushing your hair for that long. That's so crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. Some people just don't do it. Don't brush their hair.
Mm-hmm.
You said you wanted to come back to the religion thing, though. What specifically were you thinking?
Well, no, we kind of touched upon it. It was mostly just that I was, like the line between, being pro-refugee but anti-religion.
Oh, okay.
Because I totally agree with you. Like Islam is bad, Christianity is bad, religion is generally bad, and so I don't think that we should it's weird because I would say that it's true that I don't want an influx of religious migrants anywhere, period. But at the same time, I'm gonna value the fact that you are in a war-torn country and your kids are starving over the fact that I don't think that you should be religious. Like I have a hierarchy here.
Yeah. I suppose that's kind of the countries have to work together, which I feel like rarely happens, where if you've got a certain amount of refugees, then rather than letting a large chunk of them go to one country, they should go to all the countries that are taking them in an even split. So Germany doesn't take 40,000 refugees. Instead, they can send.
So it's not like it's a refugee majority.
Yeah.
I just had a thought though. It might be good though, actually, to have them move. Because I was going to ask you, do you think that we should, refugees aside, obviously this wouldn't happen because there's too many religious people in the government and all that stuff in the country. But do you think it would be a good to not allow religious migrants who just want to move here just for funsies, but also happen to be religious? But then I was thinking, that means they would go back to their home country. And I suppose if one of your ultimate goals of society is to eventually have religion out of it, you wouldn't want to keep religious people in their religious majority countries in an echo chamber. You would want to bring them to the more atheist countries to hope that some of them convert.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of them do convert.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also the worry of those atheist countries becoming less atheist.
Yeah. So maybe like you were saying, funnel it through various countries and divide it up.
Yeah.
Evenly.
Because Islam is the world's fastest spreading religion, has been for
really
a long time.
That's interesting. I wonder, why do you think that is?
High birth rates. probably among
I suppose
religious
that's
people.
true. Yeah, that makes sense.
Also, not all religions are equally super into the idea of like converting people and spreading religion. A lot of religions are content to not spread it. Like Judaism, if you're a religious Jew, you're basically trying to not spread religion. Like if somebody wants to become a Jew,
Really?
You tell them no.
Yeah, actually,
you repeatedly tell them no, and it's kind of like a test to see if they really want to be a Jew or not. But still, it's like you're discouraging people from joining you, where like that is not the case for like Islam or Christianity or lots of other religions. So I think it's high levels of spreading it, and then also I feel like religious people generally have more children.
Yeah,
and then
that's true. Well,
and like the more developed a country gets, the fewer children families have on average.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is I think Islam tends to be more predominant in less developed countries where the birth rate is a lot higher.
Yeah.
And I was thinking too, because like I understand why you would want to spread your religion if you legitimately believe that like you're saving people by them converting, and like you're making their lives so much better. But then you lose me when if you don't convert now I'm gonna kill you. Like I can understand why you would want to spread something you think is good, but if you're threatening death if you say no.
Well, actually, I think the Quran isn't quite about killing you if you say no. It's definitely killing apostates and people who like worship false gods. But atheists, I think it's less about killing them, more about them being like slaves.
Oh, interesting.
The non-believers serve the believers. They definitely don't go to heaven or anything, but they act as the second-class citizens.
Like I just feel like, how do you believe that how do they know that their God is true and not theirs? Like, I mean, because they have to be aware, right, that they are Muslim because they were born in a Muslim majority area and they're more likely to be Muslim, and people who are born in Christian majority areas are more likely to be Christian.
Yeah. I don't think most people realize that.
How do you not make that connection and be like, huh?
Okay, yeah, that is a good connection to make, but I feel like for a religious mind, you're also going to think, I was born in this Muslim country because Allah put me here.
So Allah just hates everyone else?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. Oh my God. I mean, God works in mysterious ways.
Like, because I don't.
But yeah, I feel like there's always some, if you're really like stuck into it in your mind, there's always some workaround. Like, well, yeah, there's evil in the world because God wants to test us, or because free will. Like, there's always some reason.
See, yeah, I had that conversation with Matt, and I wasn't buying it. Like it was interesting, but it's because it comes down to like, God wants to give you the choice, because we were talking about sin too, and like, why not just like, because I was saying like, why not just not have sin? Like, why not just have all people be inherently good and not sin, because it's like, oh, well, God wants you to make the right choice, and have free will. But I think that's dumb. Like, God obviously is just playing some sick game where like, this God wants to see if you're going to be a good person or not, when God could have literally just created you to inherently be a good person. Like he could literally, they could literally just
is God transgender?
Well, no, but I don't want to make God a man, because
I think people who believe in God make God a man.
I know. Well, yeah, but then if you, well, no, they will. They'll say he, but then if you're like, oh, why is God a man? Why isn't God a woman or whatever this? And they'll be like, oh no, God is, not anthropomorphic. God is no. But you keep saying he. Well, so I think
God definitely is anthropomorphic. It even says like in the Bible, like God created man in His image.
I thought the Bible was fake, Wade.
Yeah, I know, but God is fake. But like this fake God is anthropomorphic.
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of Christians deny to me that is so.
Yeah. So I've had a lot of Christians deny awfully strange things that they would otherwise believe. Yeah. They just get backed into a corner, and like I've had experiences with Christians who they end up advocating for moral relativism, which is the opposite of what they ordinarily would say. Yeah. That God's way is the only way. Yeah. But like when they can't convince you of their being right, and they're like, well, I mean, to each his own. Like, what? That's the opposite of everything you just said. Like, people, they say a lot of contradictory things, I think.
Yeah, that's why I think the most fulfilling conversations I've ever had with religious people has been with Matt, because like I feel like most religious people mostly either don't know what they're talking about or will flip.
Matt is a we should common friend of ours, I suppose.
Yeah, he's because he's not necessarily like,
he's more metaphorical about all this, and definitely less Bible literal.
Yeah, like I think he likes the Bible, but he is more of like, God is existence.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting conversation we had, because he was telling me, like, I think I explained, what I believe, like, the purpose in life is or whatever, and all this other stuff.
What is the purpose? Well, I'll get back to that. Continue.
Yeah. And he was trying to tell me that him and I believe the same thing.
Yeah.
But he's calling it God, and I'm not calling it anything. And he's saying, so you do believe in God? And we're like, but why do you have to call it God?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you're just putting labels on there. I don't know. He challenges me, though. I think it's interesting.
Well, yeah, I feel like the metaphorical God, that's what it comes down to with a lot of people. Like, some ideal of how to live or existence itself or something, they put that label on it. It's an unnecessary label. Have it.
Yeah, right? Totally.
Are you familiar with Jordan Peterson at all?
Yeah.
Like, that's some frustration I have with him, is after watching lots of his stuff, like, he would talk about God a lot, and I wasn't sure if he actually meant, like, God in, like, a literal sense. And then I started to realize he didn't, but then it made
I thought he was religious.
No, he definitely means a metaphorical God.
What? Okay.
Did you watch those?
What is the difference between a metaphorical God and a God? Like, I understand that there was a difference between a metaphor and, like, a legitimate thing, but what is...
Well, I mean, to a believer, it isn't a metaphor. And to someone who believes in a metaphorical God, they're not, like, it's a different mindset. Also, a metaphorical God isn't one that would intervene on your behalf. Like, praying to them isn't going to do anything. Or perhaps it isn't an entity who created the world 6,000 years ago and made Adam and Eve. It's like, you take all these things out. It's just...
Existence?
Well, okay, so...
Because I feel like you could just say existence if you just mean existence.
Yeah, they could.
I just feel
They mean existence with a capital E, though. But I feel like, okay, so for Jordan Peterson, when it gets down to it, he means, like, the ideal that all humans should strive for is what God is.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
So then, but it kind of takes everything else he says about God and makes it seem kind of disingenuous. Like, he's trying to sell his material to a religious audience when he himself isn't quite religious, and he doesn't mean these words the same way they're taking them to me.
He definitely comes off as religious to me.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I feel like he's trying to be a huckster in a
I think
way.
he is. I don't know. The guy gives me bad vibes, so I wouldn't doubt it.
I think he's got a lot of good things to say, but he's also kind of being sly and mischievous.
Yeah, he's 50-50 with me.
Yeah. But, okay, so there's people who mean, like, metaphorical God like that. And then there's people who are like, God
zapped Earth with his fingers. Yeah.
And whether or not there's, like, creationist young Earth or, like, God set up evolution to make it come to this.
Yeah.
They still believe in, like, something, like, that they could speak with that actually exists in the universe, like a creator figure, rather than just ideas.
Yeah, like a guiding force. No, I see what you're saying. But yeah, so with the thing, like, what I think, like, the purpose in life is, though, is I realized what I can call myself now when I watched your nihilism video the other day. But I forgot the word already. But it's
positive nihilist? Optimistic nihilist?
No, it was something you mentioned briefly, but it's essentially like the
existentialist?
I'm an existentialist.
Yeah.
So that's what I believe. And then for those who don't know what existentialism is, Wade might be able to describe this better, but I'll give you my go at it and you can tell me if I'm missing anything.
Sure.
But essentially it's that there is no objective meaning to life. It is, the meaning in life is whatever is important to you. If, like, the meaning of life for you is the pursuit of whatever you want it to be, like, for me, I think the meaning of life, and I don't think everybody else should have this, but my personal meaning in life, right, is just the pursuit of happiness. Like, I just want to be happy. So I guess that is what existentialism is. It is what you make of it.
Yeah. I do worry about some things with existentialism, though. That it leads to moral relativism. If everybody creates their own meaning, then
that's true.
You've got incompatible versions of what's good.
Do you think you can have existentialism and moral objectivism? Because I feel like I'm a moral objectivist. I also think I'm an existentialist.
I think you can have the two. I think existentialism tends more often towards relativism.
Yeah, no, I can see why that is. Yeah.
But so for existentialism, the ancient Greek idea of essentialism that Aristotle believed, it kind of takes the idea of souls, like, literally, where every human is born with an essence, like a specific thing that they are good at or meant to do in life, like their purpose or their calling. And existentialism is the opposite of that. It rejects that idea. You don't have a purpose or a calling. It doesn't exist. It only exists when you make it for yourself. Like, you have to create it. It's not, like, inherently there and you have to find it. It's more like there is no point.
Yeah. And I believe in that. And I see what you mean, because I think existentialism can be a slippery slope into moral relativism. But I think if you take the time just to simply explore moral relativism and moral objectivism, I don't think they have to be mutual. Like, I don't think you have to, because I think I can say that certain things are objectively bad.
Yeah.
And also believe that there is no meaning to the universe. I think those are two different things.
Yeah. And I think you could judge someone else's, if they're existentialist and they've prescribed a point to their life and they told you it, you could judge whether or not that is good. Like if they said, my purpose is to molest kittens, and that's what gives me, like, that's what I aim for, you could say you're a shit person. And like you've misunderstood the concept of existentialism.
Because I think that you are allowed to believe that. You know, I'm not going to tell people what they can and can't believe. I think it's a stupid belief.
Yeah.
You know, and so I guess I think that, well, I think everyone should pursue their own purpose for living. If your purpose for living harms or impedes
someone else's purpose for living,
then
that's basically the golden rule, I guess.
But then, you know, people make the argument, oh, like, you know, the animals don't count or whatever.
Yeah,
which is stupid.
Yeah, that's kind of been a plague upon the earth forever. That, like, especially with souls and the essentialism thing.
Yeah,
it's definitely where maybe not it started, but like it got its words for it. Animals don't have souls, but humans do. Yep. Or some people are like, some animals have souls, but some don't.
Yeah,
like my dog has a soul.
That's
He'll
so
be in
stupid.
heaven.
Which is funny because you think generally people are placing what animals have souls based on their emotional connection that they can develop with that animal.
Yeah.
But that's so dumb because we know that pigs have the same level of emotional intelligence as a dog does.
Right. So then people who like pigs, because they have it's not about the capacity for emotional relationship. It's about whether or not you have one right now.
Exactly. That's why, like, they don't kill cows in India.
Yeah.
Well, some people do. They just take them across the border.
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of people would say that, like, animals have souls, but fish don't have souls. Kind of hard to have an emotional relationship with a fish.
Yeah. But I think regardless, though, of the fact of whether, like, if we say that souls exist, regardless of whether or not the fish has a soul, the fish still has a right to live.
Yeah.
Especially because you don't need to eat it. Like, you literally don't need to. Like, you just want to.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of souls just takes a lot of moral intuitions and just fucks them. Like,
tell me how.
If you are concerned about souls, it necessarily kind of leads to, like, an afterlife, or there is more than this life right now, because, you know, if your soul continues on after you die, then that is your true essence. That's what matters. So it gives a lot of leeway and lenience to the idea that it's kind of okay for physical harm and torture to happen because your soul is left intact.
Yeah.
You can suffer in this life, but your soul will go on. So really, there's no harm done.
Yeah. What?
So, like, if I murder you in the name of God,
you're
left untouched because your soul is now, you know, cleansed of its sin or whatever.
That's a mind-blowing, like, that's
so basically it takes these consequences that you would look at and pushes them off to some later life, or like puts them on some ethereal spirit that you have rather than, like, your physical body.
Is that how that's pronounced? I thought it was ethereal. Is that wrong?
Yes.
That's funny. I've been reading that word. Oh, I bumped the mic. I've been reading that word wrong for a long time.
You can move that chair behind you if you want. Like,
dude.
just sit however is most comfortable for you.
I was too scared to move once we started, like, recording.
No, you can get up.
I didn't want to, like, start making noise.
So, and I talk to so many people who actually still believe in souls. Really? And then I feel like half the time I ask them why, they don't have any reasons. It's just because they believed in souls since they were a kid or whatever, or they were told to.
Yeah, I think I find that to be common among a lot of religious people generally. Like, I'll talk about their religion with them, and they won't necessarily even try that hard to defend it. You know, like, they'll give up pretty easy, which I guess is fine. You know, like, do your thing. But see, they'll like not necessarily disagree with me, but they don't want to give up their religion because, like, just like, I just might as well.
That, I think, almost annoys me more than people who fight really hard.
Yeah.
People who give up, but then don't actually concede to you.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, whatever, you're right. I'm still going to keep believing this, though. It's like, what was the point of this conversation? Yeah, like, maybe I'm a know-it-all, but, like, I just can't imagine not caring about being wrong. Yeah. Like, I don't want to be wrong. Why are you okay with that? That makes me uncomfortable. Like, yeah, you should be, what I mean by that is I'm not saying you should never, like, you know, admit to being wrong. You should always admit to being wrong. But what I'm saying is, if you discover that a belief you previously had is false or bad or just stupid, and you have, like, an obligation to replace it. Yeah, I would think so. You know, like, if you believe that 2 + 3 is 4, and I show you that 2 + 2 or 2 + 3 is in fact 5, you should be like, oh, okay, and then start espousing the correct belief, or what you know to be correct with all the information you have, instead of just being okay. Like, it frustrates me. And it's like, because I think that part definitely happens. Nobody's gonna, well, few people are going to say, like, even after you show them 2 + 3 is 5, they're going to be like, okay, yeah. But then when it comes to the topic of like religion or anything spiritual, that's like out of bounds. That's untouchable. No matter what you say, it's not going to convince anyone half the time. For some reason, people perceive that as to be like outside the realm of what you can actually argue with.
Window, I think that's called.
Yeah.
I learned that recently.
Explain that one for the listener.
The Overturned Window. Okay, so I recently learned this term, and from what I understand, is the Overturned Window. It's generally used when referring to political topics. So what it is what is considered culturally to be acceptable in the way of political discourse, or I guess in any other form of discourse. So like when you're talking about religion or just conversations, there's an Overturned window. So like, for example, in America, it's probably outside of the Overturned window to say that we should fully transition to a communist state. Like, yeah, there's people that believe that and talk about it all the time, but in mainstream political discourse, that's extremely radical. It is outside of the norm, and it's thus outside of the Overturned window.
Yeah, and I guess with like increasing of freedom of speech, then you'd be opening up the window, and with limiting it, you'd be closing the window, because now you're making things that were previously acceptable to talk about unacceptable. However,
I don't think the Overturned window, though, is necessarily regulation based, though. It's mostly like what is accepted.
Sure, socially.
Like it's more of like what's mainstream and what's not mainstream, I guess, is the most simple way to put it, I think.
Yeah, that kind of fits what I was mentioning. I meant less that like you can't talk about these things with people. You can, people talk about religion. I just mean like that people seem to think that their religious beliefs are like impervious to assault. Oh. That like no matter what you say to them about it, it doesn't have the power to affect their thoughts on it. Yeah, so it's like people are like, religious ideas can't ever be completely proven wrong or right, so I'm free to believe whatever I want, even if I have bad reasons for it.
Which I think is weird. Like, why?
In the way that you could get someone to admit that they're wrong about mathematics,
you
couldn't get that same effect with religious topics. You can sometimes, but generally speaking, people don't like to admit that they're wrong.
I think because religion is faith-based. You just have to have faith.
Yeah.
Which I think is... Well, it's weird, because I was going to say I think it's stupid, but not necessarily, I guess, because I have faith in the sense that I have faith that our base levels of scientific thinking are true. Like, I think we might have talked about this before, where like, when it comes to scientific inquiry, like, it's like, oh yeah, this happens because of this, and if you keep asking why, in regards to scientific explanations, it's eventually just because. So I suppose, I have a type of faith too.
That's the thing I hear a lot from religious people. They say like, it takes just as much faith to believe in evolution as it does to believe in creationism.
I wouldn't say just as much. But
yeah, exactly. I wouldn't say just as much. And I think there's a difference too, because the faith that you're talking about is a faith that can be corroborated. Like, you believe in it because there are other supportive reasons that maybe you can't dig down to the very bottom of it and prove that it's true. But all these other things that seem to be true fit into what you believe. Where like a religious faith, there aren't any of those things. Like, there aren't any like scientific facts that corroborate your faith that Jesus was resurrected.
I don't know if it is quite different, though, because I don't think that's entirely true. I think because it's not scientific facts that corroborate your faith. The faith corroborates the scientific facts, because we have a base level of scientific thinking. And because we assume that's true, and because it's true, all of these other things work, and we know how things work. Yeah. Religion is similar in the sense that we assume that the base level faith is true, and because it's true, all of these other things happen that are true. I guess I'd say the difference, though, is that it tends to be that a lot of, like, if you look at like a tower, where like the faith is the basement, the religious building tends to fall apart a lot. So I think they're right in the sense that they're both faiths, but I think that the predictions and outcomes that you get from each faith, it tends to be a lot less accurate when it comes to religion.
And religious ideas have been constantly weakened by scientific findings. As time goes on.
Well, and the fact that it like advocates for suffering for people, like torture and all that other stuff, which I think is probably bad.
Suffering cleanses the soul.
Is that a thing people believe?
That's definitely like a more medieval type of religious idea. Self-flagellation kind of thing.
That's crazy.
You were lusty over someone who isn't your wife.
Right.
Had to go whip yourself in the back 9 times.
Jeez.
That kind of thing.
I'm really glad we have gotten past that as a society. Because you can't know. Because like we look back at that now and we think, oh man, that's so stupid. Like what an idiot.
How barbaric.
Right? But if you lived in that time, odds are you would have done the same thing, Like, it's not likely you would have been like, the guy saying, hey guys, this is probably not smart.
Yeah, I think that sometimes, but then I also think the opposite. Because, I mean, even in medieval times when there were such barbaric things like that going on, there were still some people who were against it.
Yeah.
And who were like logical thinkers and like,
but
this
how
doesn't
many?
make any sense.
Like, was it a handful or was it like a significant number of the population?
No, probably a handful. I mean, and if it was a significant number, then most of them were closeted and didn't have the courage to threaten getting killed by the Spanish Inquisition when they were talking about how awful everything that was going on was. But still, so the fact that there have basically always been some people who could see things clearly makes me wonder, like, if I lived then, maybe I'd be one of those people.
But do you think that's maybe... Because, like, I'd like to think that about myself, too. You know, and I think that you are a pretty smart guy, Wade. But are you so smart that you would consider... Because it's like, you have to do this comparatively speaking, right? Where it was a very small amount of the population back then who was able to break free of this dogmatic thought. Would you place yourself in that same tier of free thinking level of society today?
Well, I don't want to say yes, I'm a smart boy, but I mean, in a way, I would. Yeah. Like, I feel like you and I, like, vegans. That's already kind of definitely outside the norms. Like 2% of people. Yeah,
that's very true.
So, like, if we're already saying like all the rest of the stuff the modern world is doing is barbaric, and most people don't accept that, then maybe we would be the people who would be in medieval times saying that like Catholicism is messed up, when 99% of people were Catholics.
Yeah, and I'd like to think so, and you could be right. I guess my hesitation to always just automatically say, oh yeah, I wouldn't, is because like it gives me the same vibes as like those people who are like, they'll see something, like they'll see a video of something bad happen, you know?
Yeah, and be like, I would totally like be a hero in that situation.
Yes! I hate that because it annoys me because
it's like a self-righteous kind of.
It's so self-righteous because more than likely you wouldn't have.
But
everybody thinks they would have. Yeah, and you might. Yeah. But to say without like, because I'll counter that person when they said, I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, like, I'd like to think I would, but I'm not sure. And they're like, oh, I definitely would. Like, no, you don't know that. Shut up. You're an idiot.
Well, thinking back in situations that you've been in, where maybe you were in a situation of witnessing something that was wrong, have you acted in that situation, or just kind of sat there?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I think though, because I've only recently become like a more mature adult, you know, I've been a child most of my life. And so like when I witnessed these things happening as a child, I didn't do anything. No, like if I would like to see someone like being bullied in elementary school, like I don't want to get in a fight, you know, I'm going to leave it be. So historically speaking, I have not, but I would like to think, you know, as I've matured, you know, that because nothing like that's really happened to me since I've been like, you know, fairly intelligent. But maybe, I don't know, maybe
gotta put yourself in more, I don't know, dangerous situations.
Yeah, I'm not a big danger guy.
Do you ever watch Vsauce?
Love Vsauce.
So his series Minefield that he does, it's more about psychology than physics. There was a episode where it was like how to become a hero. It was like how people often perceive themselves as being heroic like that. They would stand up for the right thing in the situation. Most people don't do that. But then there's ways to actually train it. And like there's there's like classes done by psychologists to get people to become more likely to stand up for other people in situations. And then they put a bunch of like test subjects through the class. And then like before and after this class, they exposed them to situations where they would see like cruelty, and there were other like actors there sitting next to them and nobody was doing anything. So it's like the bystander effect of if you're in a group of people, you feel less responsibility to do anything because nobody else is doing anything. And you expect maybe they will do it instead of you. So they would put the people in the situations before and after, and then after their like classes, like 6 months after or something, I think most of them like actually did something. So they like showed improvement in their capability of actually standing up for things.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So you can definitely train it.
Yeah, you could, and that'd probably be good. I think though it's probably it wouldn't happen though in terms of like life or death for most people. Like I don't know if you could train that because it's like then it just comes down to like, okay, I can risk my life to possibly save this person's life. And so I guess it would depend on how much you value that other person's life, because I think we tend to value our own lives pretty highly, you know? Yeah,
that's true.
Like, I don't want to die. I remember in elementary school, this is funny. So I was in like 6th grade, and it was just like one of those questions that was going around on the playground, and kids were asking each other. They said, if you died, like, what is like the best way for you to die or whatever? Like, how would you want to die? Something like that, right? Yeah. And so a kid asked me, you know, how would you want to die? And I hadn't heard anybody else answer it. It was just like, I'd heard people were asking this question. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Probably like painless in my sleep or something, so I didn't feel anything. And they go, oh, I would want to do it saving someone else's life. And I was like, oh, great, so I'm a bad person. So that was a funny experience I had, like 6th grade.
I remember I drew a comic of how I would want to die.
Really?
Like,
That's almost like Dark.
I was like 13 or something.
Huh.
It was really like convoluted, and I was trying to like cram as many cool things into it as I could. And I was like in a spaceship that was going into a black hole.
Oh my god.
Within this gigantic spaceship, I built like a biodome that had a volcano in it.
Okay.
And then at the moment of crossing the event horizon, I jumped into the volcano. So it's like...
You knew what an event horizon was when you were 13?
Yeah. I mean, that's just like Neil deGrasse Tyson teaches you that, you know?
That's true. Yeah, I think I don't think I knew the name of an event horizon, but yeah, no, I was super into like the space shows when I was younger like that.
Yeah, and like Bill Nye, like...
Yes. Yeah, those are good.
Yeah, a lot of kids are into the space stuff. I always was. Mm-hmm. Never so much into dinosaurs, like a lot of young boys are.
Yeah, I never got on that.
I mean, they're cool, but I'm not like wearing dinosaur pajamas or anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I think all the dinosaur merch I wore was just purchased for me because I was a little kid.
And like the whole dinosaur thing is a lie. Like the way they depict them with scales, like
now because the T-Rex had feathers.
Yeah, now they're like they all have feathers, or most of them have feathers.
Yeah, who'd have thought?
And they still continue to make like the Jurassic World movies with them depicted incorrectly, because that's now like the iconic image of a T-Rex.
What do you think people would do if they like? Do you think there'd be that much backlash?
Outrage about it? Maybe, I don't know.
But because I don't know, because I feel like people generally are outraged when you change something that's beloved, right?
Yeah.
Like people hated when they came out with the new Sonic movie how it looked initially. It was
and
like
they
weird
changed the
and
face
gross
to appease the masses.
Yeah, but that's because like there's nostalgia and people like have loved how Sonic looked. No, I don't think anybody. At least nobody I know has an emotional attachment to the way dinosaurs look.
I don't know. I think Jurassic Park, probably the first few movies, generated that.
It'll be a couple boomers. I think it's fine.
Boomers? They came out in like the 90s.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I don't know. I don't know. I guess I don't know a lot of people my age who love Jurassic Park like Gen Xers and boomers do.
Well, if they make any more movies about dinosaurs, which they probably will at some point, they should make them scientifically accurate.
Yeah, they should. I agree. But should they? Should we make cartoons scientifically accurate? Because if you know that it's a fictional thing, you know.
Well, I mean, it's not fictional per se. It's not fictional.
Dinosaurs living in a zoo with humans keeping them. I think that's fictional.
Okay, I mean the story itself is fictional, but it's like based upon the idea that they took dinosaur DNA and remade dinosaurs, which is hypothetically possible in the future.
Okay, well, what about like cartoons though, where like people and animals are just not drawn anatomically correctly?
I mean that doesn't matter. Like
why? What's the difference?
Like BoJack Horseman, like you got a dog man and like.
Well, no, not even that. I'm talking about like just like like characters or just things in shows that are meant to represent like a legitimate cat or dog. But it doesn't.
I guess it depends on like the intention. If like this is trying to be straight up like a realistic cat, because like the whole the Jurassic Park movies, like they're trying to make them
to be like
what dinosaurs look like.
Yeah. That's true. Okay, fair enough.
If it's like, hey, we're just gonna make a cool creature, like we're gonna call it a dinosaur, but we just are gonna make it up, like then they can do whatever they want.
Okay.
But if they're trying to make like we've recreated the T-Rex, this is what the T-Rex looks like. It should be what the T-Rex looks like.
I think you should start a council of you have to grant permission for certain films and TV shows on how they can depict things in the world.
Maybe a disclaimer at the end of the credits, like this is not what they actually look like.
They can dedicate it to the Wade disclaimer. To let people know. It'd be useful.
Oh yeah, about the standing up for people though. I remember I think it was 7th grade, there was this kid that lived a few blocks away from me, and he was on the spectrum of autism in some variety.
Okay. Yeah.
I was never like friends with him, but like, I don't know, I went to school with him in elementary school and for years, so I knew him. But I remember one day he was making fun of one of my classmates. He was making fun of him like based on his race. Okay. So it was like racist bullying.
Yeah, that's bad.
So I like lambasted this kid.
Yeah.
I'll call him George. I lambasted George.
Yeah.
And
good for you though.
I got in trouble for it though.
Oh jeez, yeah.
Because George was like not socially all there, so it was acceptable for him to like.
But it's not.
Be racist. I
guess. It's not.
And
like I can understand why you would want to approach it differently than you would a non-autistic person, but I think regardless of whether the perpetrator is autistic, you can't just allow racist bullying.
I don't know. Maybe part of it was that it turned out that the kid who was getting bullied, I guess he probably wasn't okay with it, but he didn't make a big fuss about it. I guess he was used to it.
Well, yeah, but nobody wants. Yeah. But that's the problem. You shouldn't be used to racist bullying.
So from the like vice principal's perspective, the situation looked like I was the one who was causing the most harm instead of him.
That's pretty funny. Good for you though for standing up for him.
Yeah, I guess that's one example I could think of that happening.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Oh yeah, on the topic of moral relativism or objectivism, Do you think there's any action that's intrinsically evil or immoral?
So are you saying that no matter the context, it's bad?
Yeah.
I don't think so, but I'm thinking, because obviously the first two that would come to mind would be like murder, but you can, murder in defense of another. I suppose rape is pretty bad, no matter how you slice it.
Think so?
I think a specific breed of rape, I'm just talking about but then we're talking about context. So I guess rape, period. Non-consensual sex is bad, no matter how you slice it.
I could think of a few scenarios.
And I could be wrong. This is just my first instinct, so lay it on me. I'll let you know if I agree.
Let's say that you and one other person,
Mm-hmm.
let's say you and me, are imprisoned.
Okay. I thought you were going to say having sex.
Well, that'll become shortly.
Oh, sweet.
We've been living in two separate rooms.
Yeah.
We know of the presence of the other.
Mm-hmm.
And say there's a overlord who's in control of this prison. This is really hypothetical, but still, just the fact that it could happen.
Hypotheticals are important.
He talks to you, and I can't hear it, and he says, I'll let you both free if you go into his cell and rape him. Otherwise, you're going to stay here for the rest of your lives.
Yeah.
Then, it's not consensual. I didn't know this was going to happen. You're just coming in here and raping me.
Yeah.
But yet, the outcome is good for both of us.
Well...
So I think my answer would be there's no thing that is intrinsically evil, because there's always some sort of context where killing someone, stealing, raping someone, it could be okay. It could be the best answer. So
I guess right now what I'm trying to hash out in my mind is, because I think that scenario though could go multiple ways. It could go good, it could go bad, because maybe you don't want to be raped. Or maybe you don't want to be raped, period. And you would rather stay in prison for life than be raped by me. And I have no way of knowing that.
Well,
and so I'm trying to figure out, though, then because that could go both ways, if it's still, because I suppose if there was a possible scenario where a rape could not be a bad thing. But no, I don't think that's rape. Well, because I guess if it's technically non-consensual, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But if afterwards it turns out you were okay with it.
Like post-consent? I
think that's post-consent.
And that makes it no longer rape?
Disclaimer for the listeners, if I'm missing something in the definition of rape here and this sounds really bad, I'm aware that that's possible. So just take this with a grain of salt maybe. But yeah, because so think of it this way, right? If two people, because technically sex with a drunk person is rape, right? Because they're not coherent enough to consent.
Yeah.
But
unless you're drunk too, which seems weird to me.
Yeah, if you're drunk too, then maybe I can see, something okay there. I don't know. I'm not going to get into drunk consent.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I'm not going to debate the merits of that. I don't know. But say, for example, you have sex with a person and they are drunk and you're maybe less drunk, or you're coherent and they're not, right?
Yeah.
But after the fact, they find out, but they're like, oh, that's fine. They're okay with it.
Yeah.
If I'm understanding the definition of rape correctly, I don't think that's rape, because I think post-consent can be a thing. If somebody disagrees with me, let me know. Because I could not be seeing something here, but that seems to follow for me. I think post-consent can be a thing.
That raises a question in my mind. I don't know if we should continue talking about rape.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this. Go ahead.
If post-consent is a thing, is post-non-consent a thing?
Okay. I thought you were going to talk about child rape.
Or child. Sure.
Right, like a kid gets molested as a child and as an adult. But just to tie that in though, I think that doesn't work though, because with a child, they can be damaged and think that it's okay.
Right.
But no, yeah.
Couldn't that happen to anyone though? Be damaged?
Well, no, because I don't. But do you have to have? Because okay, so let me just say, I don't think
because if you're saying consent in the long term is what matters and not consent in the moment, then if they
so I guess
can you take back consent in the long term?
Give me an example of a post unconsent.
Well, let's just say
we had sex and then
you and I have sex and then tomorrow I decide that it wasn't okay. Just in the same way where you have sex with me when I'm drunk and I decide that it was okay.
Well, I don't think that's the same, because okay, so
it's one you can do and the other you can't.
Well, yeah, I think so, because if say we have consensual sex where I say, Wade, can I have sex with you? And you say yes, and we have sex, and then later you're like,
right,
I'm now unconsenting and I'm not okay with that. Now you raped me. I don't think that's legit. However, if it was more we just kind of did it and you were uncomfortable the whole time and I never clearly asked you, I think you could say. It's circumstantial, but I think it's possible, right?
So then if it was ambiguous at the time, then it's up to the people after the fact to decide.
Yeah. So I guess be careful with that, generally speaking. And I'm not the president. That's why you always ask. I'm not the CEO of sexual consent, right? But these are just my takes. But I think you can have post consent without having post unconsent. Because, like, my example with the drunk person, right?
Yeah.
Is that by being inebriated, they're by default unable to consent. So if you have sex with them, you are essentially raping them. But if they say after the fact that they were okay with it, and they essentially consented to it post-mortem, even though it's not death, but post-mortem they consent to it, I think that then it's fine. Like, obviously, I'm not saying that we should go around having sex with drunk people because they might consent to it afterwards, nor should you try to convince a person who you raped. Because I think it's rape in the moment.
Okay.
But I think it can be undone.
I mean...
So I guess to go back to what we were initially talking about...
So does this make rape a always bad thing? No matter the context. Because you could always have the post-consent.
I guess no. Because if you are like, oh yeah, man, thanks for raping me. Then I guess rape isn't always 100% bad. And I could be wrong on this.
No, but I mean, so weren't you saying before that if you said, thanks for raping me, doesn't that no longer make it rape?
Yeah, and which is true, and I realized that while I was saying it. So it's thanks for having,
So then wouldn't that make rape always bad, like for this question?
No, I think, I don't know. I guess, don't soundbite me here, but okay. Maybe rape isn't always... That sounds so wrong.
There's the context of this whole conversation.
Yeah. The conclusions I'm coming to from the discussions we had here, I'm going to agree with Wade that there are certain circumstances where, well, no.
Okay, what's the circumstance?
Let me back up.
Okay.
Well, because I just realized while I was saying that. Because what I'm saying, though, is that if you were to consent post-sexually,
yes,
it would no longer be rape.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, no. I just caught that now.
Yeah.
So because it would no longer be rape if you were to consent, unconsensual sex
is always bad.
So yes, I think rape is probably the one thing. But other than that, I really don't think there's anything that is always bad. But that's just what I can think of. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know if I agree with the
post-consent
thing. Because I feel like there's too much room for you to be psychologically fucked up and like just convincing yourself that it was okay when you totally didn't think it was at the time. So like,
but I feel
like you can't.
But wouldn't that just argue for the point that rape is always bad then? Because even if you say, "Oh yeah, I'm glad you got me out of prison," but now I have a lifetime of trauma because you raped me in the dark. Like,
I think maybe that lifetime of trauma is preferable to being stuck in a room.
For you, maybe, but you can't know that.
Sure.
When you rape the person.
Yeah. I guess that raises the possibility of the same situation, depending on the person's mind, could go one of two ways. It could be morally the best possibility because you're freeing you and the other person by raping them, or maybe if they truly did prefer to live in confinement for their whole life without being raped, then you just made it even worse.
Yeah.
So you can't really know, I guess, but I still think it leaves open the fact that there are circumstances where doing awful things can be the best solution.
Yeah, I think you may be right. You probably had a trigger warning on this. We had some pretty graphic rape depictions.
Yeah. To talk about rape slightly more.
Oh, great.
Which probably isn't happy for a lot of people. You brought up one thing that I find interesting.
Okay.
If it's never okay to have sex with drunk people, I feel like there's many circumstances that could be had where you don't know that a person is drunk.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to grant you the fact that I may have overgeneralized when I was saying it. I don't know.
Should I carry breathalyzer tests on me?
Yeah, well, and see, drunk consent is an issue.
Because people can be unobviously
I think
drunk.
Is a very tricky topic because, like,
if they give you consent in the moment, but it turns out they were
like
drunk.
If you're at a party, you're really drunk, another person is really drunk, and you have sex. It's really hard because people can, be different levels of drunk, you know, and it's hard to determine that after the fact. And on top of that, too, you can also say that, like, the rapist could have been, drunk to the point where they didn't realize, like, because when you're drunk, obviously your inhibitions are limited, right? You're not thinking super far ahead when you're really drunk. So you could make the argument that they didn't make the connection that they shouldn't be having sex while drunk, because I think as a sober person, you can say, because of the fact that it's hard to know the level of awareness that both parties have, or all parties if we're talking about more than two. It's like you can't, because you can't know that, I think as a sober person you can say you should never have drunk sex. But in that same vein,
well, then wouldn't that mean you should never have sex?
No.
Because if you can't know, then they could always be drunk at any time.
Interesting. Yeah, but I don't know, because what I'm saying is if you personally are drunk, you shouldn't have sex. But at the same time, if you were so drunk that you were forgetting that or not thinking about that, maybe you should just not get drunk. Just ban alcohol.
Avoid alcohol.
Yeah, see, it's such an it's a tricky topic because
I don't think there's any good answers in this topic.
Yeah.
I was just curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, that's my soft thoughts. When I say soft, I mean that I could be probably easily swayed, but that's the extent of how I feel about it, I guess.
How do you feel about people removing Trump signs from people's lawns?
Oh, I think about doing it all the time myself.
But you haven't?
No.
Do you think it would be bad too?
Bad in what?
Like
bad as in it's against the law? Yes.
Do you think it would be morally bad to?
No.
Do you think it would be morally good?
I don't know if it's... I think it's morally neutral, I guess. Or maybe it's morally good. I think it's morally good if we assume that having a Trump sign in your yard is going to make some centrist drive past and be like, oh, maybe I'll vote for Trump. By me removing that, if that stops that from happening, I'd say it's morally good. But I don't think that's realistic. So I think it's morally neutral. Or no, actually, no, I'd say it's morally good.
For what reason?
Well, I know I keep bouncing around.
Yeah.
So, because here's the reason. There's two reasons why I haven't, right? One, I'm worried that they're going to have a camera at their house that I'm not going to see. And then I'm going to get a ticket. And I don't want a ticket, right? By a mask. Yeah, I could do that. But then I have to, walk to it. I'd rather just drive from house to house. Then they can see my license plate. But my other primary concern is that if I do that, they're just going to buy another one.
Put two up.
Yeah. Even if, they might put two up or they might just buy another one. Either way, I don't want them contributing any more money to his campaign than they already have.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right. So, on one hand...
Wouldn't that make it morally bad, then? Because if they're going to go out and buy another one.
And that's why I was going to jump back at the final thing and say it's morally bad. Because as much as I want... I would say instead of... So, I think it's morally bad because you're going to increase... That person is going to, at the very least, probably buy another Trump sign. And at the most... be fueled by their anger that you stole their sign and at the crazy libs and donate extra money to the campaign than they already have. So I would say that rather than steal a Trump sign out of someone's yard, just crap on their porch or something, but don't steal the sign. maybe don't vandalize the sign. Leave the sign be.
Yeah. And not only money wise too, but psychology wise, if you steal the sign, that's just going to further inflate their idea of
the crazy libs.
Yeah. It's going to make them more politically divided.
I totally agree.
I bring this up because my brother was doing this. He told me about it yesterday. Late at night, he would go around the neighborhood and remove Trump signs from people's lawns because they're everywhere. And he was talking about how he had removed Trump signs from this one house's lawn 3 times. And then after the third time, they put 2 up.
See, I feel like that's bad.
Yeah, it's probably just inflating the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Because my initial reaction when someone's like, oh, I stole a Trump sign, I'm like, nice. I give them the knucks. But... when you really think about it, I don't think that we should do it.
Yeah, the argument my dad was making why it was bad was that it's limiting or deleting people's freedom of speech.
No, it's not.
If they want to put signs on their property to show their ideas, then they're free to do that.
They are free to do that. And I am also free
to
willingly commit a crime to steal their property.
I don't know if you're free to commit crimes.
I guess. Yeah, so I'm not free to, but legal. But he's going at it from a legal perspective.
And legally you're not okay to go on someone's property.
Legally, they can do that. However, morally, I feel repulsed that you support Donald Trump, so I'm going to steal the sign. I'm not going to, but that would be the reasoning.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't sure how to feel. But you made a good point about having to
money.
buy a new sign.
Yeah.
Which, even if that money isn't going to Trump, because I don't know if Trump is selling his own signs. It's going to some other Trump supporter.
Sells it on his campaign website. Goes to his campaign.
Okay. But still, even if they're buying some sign from some guy who's making them himself, that guy is a Trump supporter, and I'm sure what he stands for are not good things. So
as badly as I want to vandalize and destroy that piece of property, I will refrain. There is this house in Kimberly, which is sort of it's like a West Allis in Milwaukee. It's all the same. But anyways, there's this house, and they have a couple Trump signs, a Trump flag. But this is the real kicker that is just, I think, incredible every time I drive past. They have a wooden sign that I think they built because it's wooden and painted, and it says, "Keep fossil fuels." It's dead serious. And then I think below it says "Freedom to Cruise" or whatever. I think it's a movement.
Freedom to cruise?
That's something I want to
Are they imagining driving in a car or cruise lines? Cruise ship?
I think they're talking about driving their car and their motorcycle or whatever, and they want to keep their fossil fuels.
Are they afraid they can't cruise without fossil fuels? They don't believe in electric cars?
I don't know what the... Maybe we can look up the organization and find it. But yeah, as far as I know, I think it might not even be a worthwhile attempt to try to find well, I think it's always worthwhile to find reasoning. But I don't think that we should beat ourselves up about not understanding the reasoning there, because I think if you want to keep fossil fuels, you're probably not reasonable in the first place.
I don't know. Like I could see it's maybe about like keeping jobs, but all the fossil fuel jobs aren't American jobs. They're like Middle Eastern jobs.
Well, and on top of that, the amount of jobs that we would gain by switching to wind and solar far outweigh the amount of jobs we would lose by getting rid of coal. So the jobs argument is stupid. Like if your argument is jobs, you just haven't done the research.
Yeah.
You're just spewing talking points.
That is one thing that annoys me about Trump is like reinstating all these coal plants and getting them back up and running.
Talking about how turbines kill the birds. Oh my God. That really gets me going. I there's an article I read like a year ago that was like, it was like a running list in the New York Times of all of the environmental regulations that the Trump administration has either successfully repealed or tried to repeal, or is like in the process of doing so. A year ago it was at like 78. I found an article like last week. It's like 100. Nothing makes me more mad. Well, that's not true. Killing and eating animals makes me pretty mad. But when people repeal environmental regulations, it just really makes my blood boil, especially because it's something that most people are for. Like most people want environmental regulation. Most people want, I think so. I think most people will at the very least say that they are for green living. Like even Republicans recycle.
What? Oh, sure. But that's not regulations. They're not forced to recycle.
Okay, let me put it. I think most people think that we should probably get rid of coal. Maybe I just live in a liberal echo chamber, but I think most people think that.
Maybe coal, but I feel like Republicans are generally a fan of reverting environmental
laws. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm being a little naive.
Like when Bush came into office, he like reverted the past 20 things that Clinton had done, like making sure the water was free of contaminants from like nearby factories.
Do you know what Ronald Reagan did? We had solar panels on the White House,
I know.
And he had them removed.
Yeah.
That really just...
Which, there's really no reason whatsoever for that, because it costs extra to have them removed.
Oh, no, it's to own the libs.
Yeah.
That's why.
But, like, to just keep them there...
Yeah. Dude.
What are you... Even if, like, you don't think they work or whatever, they just...
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just to send a message. Just
No, 100%.
Yeah. And probably because of him and all the other Republican presidents we've had, we could have probably been having, like, a much greater electrical... power source, or like solar power source for the entire country.
Yeah.
Like 20 years ago.
Yeah, I know. It really makes me angry. And I just, it sucks too, because nothing's going to get done soon enough, you know? I mean, it's already too late. We're already losing things, you know?
Yeah. That's like one of the things that's intentionally designed in the government, but is also infuriating, is how slow everything
That's
changes.
One of the great things about communism. Not a communist, but man, are they efficient. If you want to get something done, I mean, I suppose that's for all authoritarian, just because I suppose if, like we talked about communism earlier, but anyways, with any authoritarian society, one of the great things about it is it's very efficient. You need to get something done, you'll get it done. China grew like super fast in a few decades because they just like forced, well, they had a lot of people, and they can do what they want because the government doesn't really have any checks and balances. So yeah, I mean, like, that's why I sometimes wonder, like, so I found out recently that eco-fascism has a different meaning than what I thought it was.
What's the meaning? What did you think it was?
So I thought eco-fascism was essentially just fascist environmental policy. Like, we're just going to mandate solar power and wind turbines, and we're going to force these green actions, right?
Were you for or against that?
I would be for that.
Okay.
I would be, like, the same way I would be for banning animal agriculture. Like, I would be for all of these green policies by just, like, you know, mandating it, right? Not by, like, oh, let's vote on it, you know, whatever. This is because it's something that I believe is an objective need, and there isn't really a downside. If you can present me a reason as to why it would be bad to mandate that, other than, oh, people would be upset, I don't care. So that's what I thought eco-fascism was, right? I learned recently that it's more of, like, this ideology that, like, environmental problems are because the poor people are having too many kids in the third world countries, even though we emit way more emissions than they do. That's essentially what eco-fascism is.
So then what is the thing to be done?
Like that eco-fascists propose?
Yeah.
Are that we implement better population control in poor countries. And we basically just stop the poor people from having babies.
Oh, you like eugenics?
Yes, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So not the same as what I thought. What I thought was a great thing.
So you've been going around calling yourself an eco-fascist?
Not necessarily.
And everybody has been thinking
but
you want to kill poor people.
my girlfriend and I would like joke like, haha, wish we had some eco-fascism, you know, to each other. It's a really good thing we didn't like start like posting about it on social media because that would have been bad. But yeah, we had no idea.
So you said you don't care if like people be upset about eco-fascism.
No.
Do you not care about the fascist part of eco-fascism, like subverting democracy and forcing things?
I think fascism is bad, but I think because I think that you can maybe make an argument as to why eco-fascism, as how I thought it was, could be bad. So let me put it this way. Let's do vegan fascism, where we require everyone to be vegan. That I see as no downside other than people being upset.
Are you familiar with people having health concerns that like makes it so that they are less
you're right. I did
capable of
forget
being
about
on
that.
vegan diets?
Wait, they're what?
They're less capable of living on vegan diets. Than
Yeah,
on vegan
okay. So
diets.
if you legitimately cannot eat a vegan diet, or you have to eat like pills for
you
breakfast,
get a card that says that. You show that to the vegan police, and
yeah, right.
Then you can buy your
meat. That I would be okay with, right? Because it's a near necessity. That I can see an argument for, but for most Americans who are perfectly fine, perfectly healthy, able-bodied people, I would be okay with mandating that, and I don't care if you're upset by it because it is a moral emergency. And so I think that in cases of where when it's a moral emergency, I'm okay with fascism. But the reason why that sounds bad is because fascism tends to never be used for good things. It's used to kill people you don't like and to oppress populations. I'm using it to get people to stop killing animals when they don't need to.
Yeah, but there's that saying that like power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Which is true, yeah.
So I mean,
but and that's why I wouldn't say I was president of the United States. I would be okay with, and obviously this is one of those things where you can't know what you would do or whatever, but I would be okay with assuming absolute control to mandate veganism and then resuming back into my traditional presidential roles where I have checks and balances. I obviously, once you become an authoritarian leader,
a leader who is capable of mandating things usually doesn't step down.
And I recognize that. But what I'm saying is, ideally, that's what I would do. And I understand that I can't know that I wouldn't be like, well, let's do this too before I step down. Oh, let's do this, because obviously that's a possibility.
Let's give myself unlimited term.
And that's dangerous, which is why I don't necessarily, while I say that I would like vegan fascism, I wouldn't advocate for it because of that concern. Yeah. As much as I would like for everyone in the country to be vegan, you can't give the power for someone to enforce that because of the issues you presented. So it's more of a pipe dream.
On the other hand, though, murder is illegal, and I don't think anybody ever voted on that one.
Yeah, but I think most people in society agree that that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So what point are you making with that?
Just the fact that,
we're talking anti-murder fascism?
Yeah, we're already living in a state where...
Mm-hmm. There are fascist-esque rules.
Despite no actual democratic process, we have certain laws. Just from the very founding of the country, it's just murder is illegal.
Yeah, so why can't we just include animals in that?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that would
Murdering
be a perfectly good way
illegal
to implement just have it as part of that. I'm not saying, yeah.
But yeah, I guess the fact that it's a new law and would require somebody to demonstrate complete absolute power, that's dangerous. So.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot difficult to achieve, which is maybe the best way to do it would be when America inevitably crumbles and falls apart, whatever new country or countries that rise from its ashes need to start off with killing animals is...
Yeah, I would agree.
...a crime.
It would be in our Constitution. That'd be great. Killing people is bad, so is killing... Killing is bad.
Killing anything without necessity is...
Yes. Even plants, because even though plants don't feel pain and emotion... I feel unless there's a good reason to kill it, don't kill it.
Yeah, I get really annoyed when people use that whole disingenuous plants feel pain argument.
I know.
But yeah, at the same time, it's if you're going to just chop down a tree for lols, that's just messed up.
So do you remember the guy I told you about that I had a really, between two instances, it was 4 hours of debate I had with this guy?
I don't know.
He was a biology major. He'd already graduated. And he was...
I vaguely remember this.
Yes, he was telling me that. And I couldn't find anything when I researched this afterwards, because obviously in the debate, I'm just gonna be okay, so say what we're taking, what you say, because he was saying that plants feel pain and emotions on the same level that animals do, which is ridiculous.
I don't know how he got to that conclusion with his biology degree.
I don't either, but that's what he was saying and he was trying to say that it was similar in the sense that because plants react, when you do something to them, so to animals, and you can't know that it's the stuff that happens to animals is the same as humans.
Yeah.
His argument was something like that.
The chemical reactions.
And so I messaged, because I don't think he even has the GroupMe app anymore. So the reason I knew him, just a quick little backstory.
Sure.
I'm in the Carroll Democrats Club at school, and the president or VP of activities, she was a senior, and her boyfriend had graduated the year before. So he would still come sometimes, come hang out at meetings. I don't even know if that's legal, but he did that. Nice enough guy. But anyway, so that's how I knew him. And so we have a group chat on the GroupMe app, and I've never seen him message once in it, but his girlfriend has. So I private messaged her, addressing it to her boyfriend and her too if she's interested. But I asked, is he saying that plants and animals feel the same amount of pain, and therefore it doesn't matter which one I eat because I'm causing suffer regardless?
Which is still an argument that doesn't work. But
I know, which was what I was going to get to with him. Or is he saying that plants and animals feel the same level of pain? Yeah, so plants and animals feel the same level of pain, and I don't care about either of them. Because if he's saying that plants and animals feel the same level of pain, but it doesn't matter because I don't care about either of them, fine. I think you're
that's like you can't even have a conversation anymore.
Yeah, like I'm not going to debate that with you, whatever. But if you're saying that plants and animals feel the same level of pain, which isn't true, but if that's the argument you're going with, and so it doesn't matter which one you eat, that's still advocating for veganism, because when you eat a vegan diet, you're responsible for less plant deaths, so to speak, because you get more calories per acre when you grow plants. So
yeah.
So I'd ask that without the gotcha part of that, because I don't want him to change his position based on realizing that his reasoning is flawed.
Yeah.
So I want him to answer first, and if he answers that he just doesn't care about either, then whatever. You can be a speciesist, do your thing. I'm not gonna
What did he? Oh, like
they haven't responded yet.
He hasn't responded to that one.
Yeah, I sent the message like 2 days ago. So
yeah, I don't know. That's why I don't really fully support the plants have no moral worth. Obviously, they don't feel pain, but I feel like they at least have some moral worth, because going around destroying things, like inanimate objects, like if I'm just going to break something, why?
Yeah, I might as well. So are you saying that everything has some level of moral worth then?
Some, fraction of moral worth. Like, it's better that I don't just destroy that mug on the table than if I did, even though the mug has no feelings. It's just, and
I don't know if I would call it moral worth, but I agree with what you're saying, yeah.
And I mean, I guess that's different from with a plant, because with a cup, that is a representation of some sort of labor, somebody had to do work to make that thing come into existence. Plants, nobody had to really craft it. Yeah, but still, it's just kind of deleting energy use in the universe for no good reason. It's like raising entropy without any cause to do it.
Yeah. I would just describe it as it's just wasteful.
Yeah.
If you're destroying plants, right, you're being wasteful because plants are important to the overall ecosystem.
I guess that's what entropy is, though. Just waste.
Yeah, but I think that's a more complicated way of it, right? And if you're going around, even if it's an abandoned building, you're going around smashing windows and breaking bricks, you're contributing to a less pretty looking neighborhood, which, as trivial as it sounds, actually has a lot to do with
the whole broken windows, New York crime statistics thing.
Did you see the thing Trump tweeted the other day about repealing some sort of affordable housing act that he basically was saying that suburban housewives will be voting for him because he's making it so that it'll be harder for them to build low-income housing, apartments in suburban areas. Saying, oh, scary poor people living in my suburbia, that which was extremely racist and sexist and just bad vibes overall. But real tweet he made.
I think that sums up his personality, though.
No, it does.
Racist, sexist, it didn't bad vibes.
Surprise me, but it kind of did. He's one of those guys where I'll see something he does, I'll be surprised, and then I'll be like, I shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and just kind of generally a liar and con man.
Yeah, I don't like him.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan.
Were you a fan of Obama?
I mean, comparatively speaking, yes. But my biggest issue with Obama was his foreign policy. I think he was a fine president otherwise. And the thing that...
Sending too many drones to kill people?
Exactly. And so one of the things, too, though, is that I wasn't involved in politics enough to be able to fairly compare him to Trump. Because, frankly, I didn't live the day-by-day of his presidency. I was 8 to 12, So all the stuff I know is after the fact. Whereas Trump's presidency I'm experiencing, I'm reading the news every day, seeing this stuff, Yeah. So Trump's really the first president that I can say that I've had daily experience with, which is why I grant that, Obama, I may have liked him way more or may have liked him way less. My one big criticism of Obama is the drone strikes on, Well, that and not closing Guantanamo Bay and having a kill list. Those are bad things. You know what the kill list?
I don't know.
He had a kill list of people who his administration wanted to kill in the Middle East. Not really any trial. They're just going to kill them with drone strikes. So, kind of part of the drone strike thing. But just really awful, establishment Democrat, Republican foreign policy.
I mean, I felt kind of the same way about, was it Saddam Hussein? Was he the one that was executed with the double tap? They found his...
I thought Saddam Hussein was...
Osama bin Laden.
Osama bin Laden was raided in his home and the Navy
was that like
SEALs
2012 or something like that? 2010?
Yeah,
Osama bin Laden, not Saddam Hussein.
Okay.
Everybody was like celebrating Osama bin Laden's death.
Yeah,
like it was
like,
some great
America,
American
accomplishment,
victory.
Yeah,
and it seemed to be like extremely fucked up. You're just going and assassinating people. Like instead of if you think if he is a criminal, like a war criminal.
So you're saying Osama should have had a trial?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Maybe there's one.
I think you're right.
Maybe there's one moral, always intrinsically evil thing, like killing someone without a trial, or like punishing someone without trial.
Yeah, but I think though killing someone without a trial is just a context of murder.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
Yeah, it's just a different
context.
Yeah, that's like
That's true. Yeah, like even like the most horrible people deserve some sort of trial.
Yeah, no, I think that's true because Osama, confessed on TVs I did this stuff, but I think you're right.
And a lot of people will say that for the
sake of integrity, there should have been a trial. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people say that's because that's in the Constitution, or is it one of the Bill of Rights? I don't know. But like right to a fair and speedy trial. But people would say that only is for American citizens.
Yeah, which is stupid.
So it's like, what, we can just assassinate anybody else that's in the world?
That's so dumb because it's hypocritical. Like technically, sure, you might be right, but just because people will say that as if that the Constitution is the final word of moral right and wrong.
Yeah.
Like, sure, maybe that's legally speaking, they can do that, but that doesn't mean they should be kidnapped. Like, I read an article about a guy who was in Guantanamo Bay, who was innocent. Like, they just took him in the night, and he lived in Guantanamo Bay for like 12 years and he was like tortured. And dude, the stuff, have you read anything about what went on in Guantanamo? Goes on in Guantanamo? Oh my God, it's terrible.
I know there's torture.
Oh, yeah, okay, so get this. So the one guy who I was reading about, one of the things, because they know everything about you, right? The government kidnapped you, okay? And they knew, because he's a Muslim, right? Having children is very important to their culture, right? One of the things that I guess the guy was self-conscious about was that he hadn't had kids yet, and he was getting up there in age, and he hadn't had any children.
Did he have a wife?
He did I think he had a wife.
That doesn't really matter, I guess.
Yeah, but anyways, so one of the things, he was self-conscious about the fact he didn't have children, right? Especially so because, he was deeply Muslim.
He was expected to.
Yeah. And they would put cradles in his cell to, they would do all sorts of, psychological torture where they'd, taunt him about, his insecurities. Yeah. They'll, tie you naked to, a freezing bar. They'll do temperature control in the room, too. They'll make you, freezing cold or, super, super hot. They'll, make you fast for several days. They play really, really loud, super American music, they'll play loud, heavy metal. They make Muslims eat pork in there, which as much as I hate religion, it's kind of messed up to make people eat things that they intrinsically think are because to this guy, he's going to hell now because he's eating pork,
I wonder if he actually is, according to their beliefs.
Yeah, I
think you're forced to.
I guess I'm not sure about the details on that. But
yeah, still very
just
disturbing.
The stuff they did in Guantanamo Bay is really unsettling, to say the least. And it really just, government's bad. They do bad things.
They do.
That's why it makes me so mad with the thing in Yemen.
What's going on in Yemen?
So what's going on in Yemen right now is, and I think this has been going on since the Obama administration, so I can't say this is just a bad thing on Trump, but it's kind of a bad thing on Trump too, because he could stop it, but he hasn't. So we have an arms deal with Saudi Arabia, a huge arms deal, right? We make a lot of money from it, where we sell them American weapons, and we also refuel their planes midair, right? And Saudi Arabia then uses those planes and those weapons to bomb Yemen because there's a war going on in Yemen, right? Where what happened was, because everything's a proxy war in the Middle East, Iran is funding a Shia militia that overthrew the president in Yemen many, many years ago, a few years ago, who then fled to Saudi Arabia and was like, hey, everybody in the world, I please need help. My country's getting taken over, because it was a Sunni government, and Saudi Arabia was a Sunni government too, or whatever, right? Just different sects of Islam. And so everybody initially in the world was like, oh, this is bad. Maybe we should help them. So that's how initially these arms deals get started. And so that's what they're fighting about, right? It's just Sunni versus Shia government, essentially stupid stuff. The problem is Saudi Arabia repeatedly blows up school buses and schools and hospitals and like family farms. Like I'm talking like, 20 feet garden with some corn and like 4 people living in a house. Just bomb it. They bomb everything. It's so terrible what's happening in Yemen because they get bombed almost daily by like high grade weapons from all over the world by Saudi Arabia. And then on top of that, they're also dealing, like they have like a huge issue with like famine right now. People are starving, and then coronavirus, and they're having like a drought in the region too. Like they're not doing well, right? And so the House or the Senate, one of the two, somebody introduced a bill, right, to withdraw our arms agreement from Saudi Arabia. Like, hey, Saudi Arabia's doing some bad stuff, committing a few war crimes. Maybe we should stop giving them weapons. Twice it passed the House and the Senate, and twice Donald Trump vetoed the bill. And that just infuriates me. Like, because the amount of suffering that's happening in Yemen, that you could easily make a, because Britain has already withdrawn its arms agreements. Like, I think it's only the US and maybe one other country that still funds them.
Do you know if the bill is passed with bipartisan support?
Bipartisan support. I mean, it had to have, if Mitch McConnell let it pass through the Senate. Like I'm saying, like it passed through the House twice, passed through the Senate twice, because it got vetoed the first time. It's passed twice, and he's vetoed it twice. And one of the things that I think is probably related, other than the fact that by just having an arms deal, right, that obviously is going to boost GDP because of the money we make from it.
Yeah, that's all Trump.
But on top of that, apparently when Saudi Arabian officials stay at Trump's hotel in DC, like there's records of them routinely way overpaying when they go there, and they're not getting a refund. They're just overpaying casually. And then he's like letting them commit war crimes. Yeah. Seems a little fishy.
It's all about the more dollars for America and for Trump himself.
Me so bad. So
I feel like that's the uniting factor between everything Trump does. Just whatever is going to
make him look good or get more money.
Get more money, yeah. Although, I don't know. Make him look good. He was posing in front of a church holding a Bible upside down.
That's what I mean, though, making him look good. But he's just too much.
He's too inept.
I'm not saying he's smart. I'm just saying he's trying to look good.
Yeah,
that made me so mad. The fact that they were peaceful protesters in DC and they tear gassed and like practically assaulted these people to push them out of the way so we could walk across the street and take a picture in front of a church.
Yeah.
That is fascism. That really made me mad. But also because Trump is a fascist, right? I had a discussion with somebody on Facebook the other day because those are always good conversations.
Yeah, Facebook is always productive.
Yeah, and so the Oxford definition, or maybe it was Merriam-Webster, I don't know, one of the dictionaries, just the one that comes up.
Fascism has a very loose, hard to define definition.
It does, because really the two defining characteristics of it were
central economic power.
It was nationalism and authoritarianism.
Yeah.
Both of which I think Trump either has employed or has tried to employ. He's very nationalistic.
Yeah.
And I think tear gassing peaceful protesters is pretty authoritarian. just my opinion, though. But. Yeah. So I think you can safely say Trump is a fascist.
Vetoing
if not a wanted
bills is pretty authoritarian.
Yeah, I would say so too, especially if you don't have a
Can't vetoes be overturned though? Or is that
vetoes can be overturned by 2/3 majority in the Senate.
And they didn't get that?
I guess not, because Republicans hate brown people. I don't know.
So it wasn't bipartisan enough?
I guess not, because it was bipartisan enough. That's interesting that you asked that, because it was either, well, you know what it could have been too? It could have just been, because Mitch McConnell, the little slime ball he is, doesn't really like to ruffle Trump's feathers. Yeah. Like he literally said in terms of the coronavirus stimulus, they are just, whatever the White House wants to do, they're going to support. So what I'm thinking is, Mitch McConnell was okay with passing it, but if Trump vetoes it and doesn't want to do it, he's not going to overturn it. Yeah,
I suppose that in that way kind of looks good for their constituents. We voted in favor of this bill and Trump vetoed it. That's out of our hands, but we voted for it.
Yeah, but they totally could have. Yeah. Because I don't know what the numbers were, but I mean, I just can't believe it. It gets me going every time I talk about it. Because it's just such an obvious thing. It's such an obvious bad in the world that you could do a significant thing to stop it. And all it takes is a signature.
Yeah, but it's also bringing in probably billions or at least millions of...
Oh, it's trillions.
Is it trillions?
I think it's either several billion or several trillion. It could be a trillion though.
That's a lot.
Because it's a huge arms deal.
Yeah.
Because we're supplying them with jets and tanks and drones and missiles. Like,
yeah,
that's a lot of stuff.
From, I guess, his perspective, it's probably a decent chunk of the money that
so
the
much money we
getting.
can save by spending less money on our military.
Yeah.
Like, not only would we just have the money back, but we also wouldn't have to deal with everyone in the Middle East hating us because we bombed their country.
And, like, think of all the problems we could solve with that money, putting it elsewhere.
I know.
Like education.
I know. Like,
hospitals.
Oh my God. And if we had UBI?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, if we slashed the military, because I think in Yang's plan for UBI, none of the funding for it, it's like 2.8 trillion, right? Which is like a lot of money. But none of the funding from that comes from slashing military spending. If you slash military... It comes from, well, it's actually really interesting. I have a diagram on my phone I can show you later, but a lot of it comes because it's supposed to replace the existing welfare system. So a lot of it comes from taking out of welfare. You'd still give people the option, they can keep welfare, but nobody's going to. A lot of it comes from a value-added tax, which like a lot of European countries have, where, and I don't fully understand the intricacies of value-added tax. It just makes, like, you know, people explain, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, you know, but I couldn't really relate it to. But it's essentially like a tax on the different levels of production for companies. So it's essentially, it makes it a lot harder for companies to avoid paying taxes. A lot of countries in Europe have it. But anyway, so it gets paid for, all right, in a reasonable way that doesn't take away from programs people like. But none of it's from the military. We spend like 800 or 900 billion on the military a year. So if you were to implement UBI in the way Yang wants to, which I think would be great, you would save tons on healthcare, right? Because one of the big things, one of the reasons why poor people have large medical expenses is because they can't afford to do minor visits to the doctor. So they wait till things get worse and they have to go to the ER. So you would eliminate that, right? So medical expenses would go down. People would be more free to purchase things that they need, or would simply, like, they can invest in like their house, you know, like if they have like a non-emergency issue in their home, you know, they can fix that. Because like most Americans live paycheck to paycheck, like more than 50%, which is awful. That's terrifying, right? So you would solve that issue. And then if you cut military spending in half, that's an extra just $400 billion you have laying around to then improve education, which is also improved by UBI. Like, I think the two greatest policies we can implement in American politics today would be UBI and to slash military spending. And maybe...
Not the vegan fascism?
No, because of what we discussed before.
Yeah.
If everyone just became vegan, that would be my number one priority. That'd be awesome. But it's not going to happen. Also, defunding the police would be pretty dope, too. I'd be cool with that.
What do you envision when you say defunding the police?
So, essentially, taking X... Because I don't know the numbers of like different police departments, but taking X amount of dollars from police departments and redistributing it towards more effective social programs to solve problems that the police are not equipped or trained to solve, right? Police should be solving emergency situations where people are in danger, right? So like if there is an ongoing robbery happening, if someone is being held at gunpoint, anything where someone is in danger, call the police. If there is a mental health issue, if someone is committing a petty crime, we need to have different solutions for that aren't a guy with a gun who doesn't even live in the community. Because I think that's another issue that we have too, is that a lot of times police officers don't live in the communities that they are protecting, right? Like, and that's how it used to be, right? Is they were community-led patrols. But now, I mean, you can have a police officer that lives in Manhattan enforcing the law in Brooklyn or Bronx. He doesn't know the people there, or he or she, right? Like, so we need to have local people enforcing local things. Also, I think that a lot of things that are petty crimes shouldn't be crimes.
Yeah.
Parking tickets are stupid.
Parking tickets are awful, especially in Milwaukee.
How much is a parking ticket in Milwaukee initially?
Like $25.
Oh my, dude, it's $5 in Appleton.
What?
Yeah, and after I didn't pay it for 2 weeks, so it went up to $20.
Yeah, it starts at $20, and then if you don't pay it for like 2 days, it goes to $40. But it's not even that. It's just that like you can't park in Milwaukee unless you have like if you live there and you have a parking pass for living there, and you can park like 2 days a month if you go online and sign up for like a parking pass on a weekend at night. But if you need to leave your car overnight, like all of the streets have like night parking rules that say like you can't park here from.
But you can call it in, right?
Only 2 days a week though, or 2 days a month. I mean,
Appleton, I think it's 4, but it's like a similar thing, yeah.
So like, if you're gonna be in Milwaukee overnight, it better be on a weekend, and it better not be more than twice a month. Otherwise, you're having to pay $20 for every single day that you do it. And every single street in Milwaukee, at least every single one that I've ever been on, which is a lot of them, have the night parking rules. Like, you might be able to find 1 or 2 streets in the entire city where that rule isn't in effect, and you can park there. But most of them, you need to either pay this yearly, like, $150 parking fee, or suffer the tickets. So if you're visiting someone in Milwaukee, you're pretty much screwed if you want a car.
Dude, Parking tickets are stupid. And I know they'll say, oh, it funds the roads, it funds the parking lots, but there's definitely other ways to do that.
Yeah. And when I didn't live in Milwaukee and Adrian did, I would get like several parking tickets a month because I wasn't only going to visit 2 days a month.
Yeah. Dude, that's so stupid. What do you think about speeding tickets? Also stupid.
I think speeding tickets are really stupid too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there shouldn't really be a speed limit.
Yeah, well, and people speed anyways.
Yeah.
Speeding tickets don't not make people speed. They just make you slow down when you see a cop.
Yeah. I think there could still be tickets for driving like disorderly, or maybe not even tickets, but like patrol could still happen. They could pull people over.
Yeah.
Just as inspections or like whatever. But just like so you know that there's always a chance you'll get pulled over. So to disincentivize you from driving drunk.
Yeah. Or like from like lane splitting at 100 miles an hour, cutting people off. Like that's bad.
Yeah.
You know.
So then like you could still, it's not like we get rid of patrol. So you could still think like, I can't just go driving drunk because somebody's going to see it and catch me. And then, keep the drunk driving laws. Actually, probably make them worse.
They're super loose in Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin, you can drunk drive like 7 times in a year before you go to jail.
I think it's 5, actually.
Okay, but still, that's still ridiculous. A lot. 5 is a lot.
Like California, like you get once and you go to jail or prison. Wisconsin, it's like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah,
it's like,
not to mention that drunk driving is just more common in Wisconsin too.
Well, it's because drinking is more common in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Like 3 of the top 10 drinking cities in America are in Wisconsin. Appleton is actually usually number 1. It bounces around in the top 3, but Appleton is number 1 a lot.
Wow.
We have a lot of bars.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of bars everywhere.
No, dude, Appleton's like insane. Like downtown, like the main strip there.
All bars.
Pretty much. Mostly bars. I don't even know why. Like, why do you need that many bars? What is so special about one or the other?
There's a lot of, I haven't been to Appleton. I'm sure there are more bars there. But I wonder the same thing about right here where I live. Like, all these bars, like, who is going to these places? I'm sure if you walk inside, there's 2 people in there. Like, how do these bars stay in business? And why are they necessary?
Well, it's because they charge a lot of money for alcohol. That's the other thing. Like, because initially I want to say, like, I don't understand why people go to bars. Like, why would you pay that much for alcohol? But then people will say, like, well, it's, it's a place to socialize. But, like, you can just, and meet new people, which, like, I guess I get. But I personally wouldn't go, but I guess I get why other people then do.
I don't know. It's still like some social pressure evilness going on. You could go to a bar, socialize with people, and buy 1 drink instead of 4 or 3 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could buy no drinks. The people working at the bar won't like you very much, but
you just get a water, get a kitty cocktail.
Yeah, and like there are other places to socialize too.
Yeah,
you can go to a coffee shop and it'll still be expensive, but you can get something there cheaper than.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. Like, I don't think you can get a beer for $2.10. You can get a coffee for $2.10, like anywhere.
And that used to be like the place to go back in the olden days, a long time ago, like 200 years ago. You go to the coffee house. That's where the intellectuals would go to have philosophical discussions or talk about politics.
That sounds so nice. Go to the coffee house.
That's like where Karl Marx would go with his buddies.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
I wanted to ask you about one thing that you mentioned with defunding the police. So you were talking about like taking money from the police and giving it to other social programs that need it more. Do you envision like breaking up the police into different categories? Like,
yeah, sure. Because
there are, like, I've recently learned there are sections of criminal or like policing that are like seriously underfunded. Like some are seriously overfunded. Like you don't need a SWAT team in every city.
Yeah.
But some like specifically I'm talking about like small sections of police in cities that go after child sexual abuse videos and images online, like that sort of thing. Like they have no hope of ever fixing the problem because there's like 2 guys in the department working on it. So I envision if you just blanket defund the police, then certain problems would become a lot worse.
Well, yeah. When I say defund the police, it's a catchphrase. Like it's.
Well, yeah. No, I'm totally for defund the police too. I just like wanted to know specifically what you were thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously I'm not going to defund the child sex crimes unit.
Yeah.
That's I think an important thing we should fund.
Yeah. I think that one
when I say defund the police, I'm saying just generally redistribute the money in a more sensical way.
Yeah.
To say it in the most, because any police department can get like a SWAT tank and they don't need one.
Yeah.
Like it's really easy. There's a really good video that I should send you about like the history of police departments in the country. But yeah, it's really easy for police to like become like military institutions.
I remember in high school, I lived in Waukesha, which is suburban.
Yeah, I go to college there. Yeah, I'm familiar.
Oh yeah, you go there. Oh, for the listener.
Yeah, for the listener, it's a nice, quiet, very Republican suburban town.
Yeah. I remember there was some guy who I think either successfully killed himself or was threatening to kill himself. And for that, on my way to school, I was blocked off and had to like go way out of town because there was like a procession of police vehicles and they had a Bearcat. Do you know what that is? It's basically like a tank truck. Think of like the Batmobile from the Christopher Nolan's movies.
I think that's what I meant when I said SWAT tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bearcats, they're crazy.
Why did they have that?
And they brought it because some guy was threatening to kill himself.
You need a mental health professional, not a tank. This is what I'm saying. This is what
they go in as if he's committing a genocide. And it's like, no, you need a psychologist, a therapist there.
Yeah, the guy's probably freaking out.
You need to have him on a phone call with a hotline or with his family members.
Literally. Yeah, so that's what I mean when I'm talking about. Yeah. They don't need. That's ridiculous. Yeah.
Especially in suburban areas. It'd be fine if Milwaukee had the SWAT team, and then if there's something going on that's actually deserving of it elsewhere, you could send the SWAT team there, and that would take 20 minutes or less.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was gonna ask you something. So, because I see a lot of people talk about this online, and I think it's probably an unpopular opinion that I have. Do you think we should kill pedophiles?
No.
I don't either.
Do people think that?
Dude, so many people on my Facebook timeline will be posting memes about killing pedophiles and just that. And I feel like we shouldn't do that.
That is a clear example to me of the punishment does not fit the crime. I don't think you should kill people really as a punishment. You should probably only kill people as a prevention of them killing further people.
I agree. Well, and I also just think that people don't draw the line between pedophiles and child abusers.
Yeah, not every pedophile has actually acted upon their desires.
Yeah, because pedophilia, whether you like it or not, is a legitimate mental disorder.
Yeah.
You're sexually attracted to children, that is a mental disorder. Okay? I'm not saying because if you say that to people, they'll be acting like you're this awful person who is a pedophile apologist. No, pedophilia is a mental disorder. Okay? Being a child abuser is bad though. That should be dealt with. So I think first off, killing people who are just simply sexually attracted to children is wrong in so many ways. Killing people who abuse children is wrong, but I understand where you're coming from. I understand why people have that emotional reaction and want to kill them, but we can't just go around killing people who do bad things.
Yeah. No, I'm in agreement with you there.
Okay, well, okay. A lot of people really just think so.
I don't know. I'm not a fan of the death penalty in any way.
No, same.
I think if you already have someone in prison, you don't need to kill them.
Not to mention the fact it's not a useful deterrent. Studies have shown it doesn't actually deter the crime.
Yes, I was reading a book about this last year, The Better Angels of Our Nature. It's about a lot of things, but basically the book is about how humans have gotten more moral over time, whether that's, actually intuitive or forced upon them. But in cases of crime, the thing that deters people is not the drasticness of the punishment, it's how likely they are to get caught. Mm-hmm. So if somebody is thinking of robbing a bank and the punishment is just death, except only 10% of bank robbers actually get caught, they're totally going to do it. But if the punishment is just a fine for 3 times what you stole, but 90% of people get caught, they're not going to do it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That reminds me though, the thing I mentioned to you earlier about prison abolition.
Oh yeah.
Which is a topic that I'm interested in, but I don't know much about. I just know that Angela Davis is for it. Angela Davis is a beast.
Who's Angela Davis?
Angela Davis is a queen, okay? Angela Davis was part of the Black Panther Party. She is currently a law professor. I don't remember where, but just a great activist. She went to prison for conspiracy to kill someone or something. I don't know. She's pretty cool. Look her up.
Did she actually want to kill someone?
I think it was probably a setup by the government. The government assassinated several Black Panther Party members. It wouldn't surprise me if they also framed her. Well, no. What I think it was there was some other people in the Black Panther Party who had planned a bombing of some government building, and she was listed as a conspirator or something, and she was in Cuba for a while. So, anyways, cool lady. You guys should look her up, Angela Davis. Really cool. So that was kind of her talking about it had what had gotten me interested in it. But I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they had a guest on who was another law professor, and I want to say Georgetown. Could be wrong. It doesn't really matter. Who is a strong prison abolition advocate. So when we talk about prison abolition, right, one of the main rejections that people have, or objections that people have, that I had too, because it makes sense, right, is, well, what do you do with violent criminals? Murderers, right? Murderers are bad. That's scary. You don't want to just free them when we abolish prisons. But the guy pointed out some really interesting statistics. More murderers are free today than are in prison.
They get let out eventually, right?
Well, partially because the average prison sentence for a murder in this country is 11 and a half years, which isn't that long, which also indicates that they're going to get out at some point. And most don't reoffend. But then on top of that, most murders in this country also go unsolved. I don't remember the number. I want to say it was 20 or 30%. But 20 or 30% of murderers get caught. So most of them go free, and almost all of them get let out eventually. So if we were to abolish prisons, it wouldn't really be an issue with releasing the murderers, right? And so I was thinking about that when I was driving down here, talking about this. So then I guess the extension then of that concern is, well, what do you do with like serial killers and the people who are legitimately crazy who want to kill? And, I'm not an educated prison abolitionist, but I guess my response to that would be, like if I'm advocating for prison abolition is you'd put those people in some type of psychiatric hospital.
Because I think to prison in my mind.
Well, yeah, but the problem is prisons generally aren't well equipped to handle mental health issues.
Neither are the mental hospitals.
Yeah, but they're better than
they could be. Though.
Yeah, but we can abolish prison and reform mental hospitals in the same breath. Like we probably won't, unfortunately. But like you can do that, like it's a multifaceted issue. But prisons are definitely worse. I mean, in solitary confinement, like they'll just
that is definitely
solitary confinement's really bad. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you do if you act like you catch somebody who committed a murder? You just say, "Okay, sorry." I mean,
yeah. Bye. So this is the part that I'm not as sold on because like.
People are allowed to commit murders? Is that basically?
No, so that's not it. So it's like essentially if you commit a crime, there's and they actually have this in certain neighborhoods in like New York and other larger cities.
You put in a database?
So there's this thing, it's called I forget what it's called, but it's essentially like sort of like a peer led like tribal court kind of deal where essentially community members,
like a reparations court kind of thing?
Yeah, basically. So there's a certain city in New York or town or whatever that has a deal with the DA in the area, right? Where if the victim or the family members of the victim, if the victim's dead, like in the case of murders, agrees to it, they will do it in this court rather than, the actual courts, right? Where they essentially work out some type of way. Oh, it's called restorative justice.
Yeah, restorative justice.
Yeah, where how can they restore the victims, So like, and it's been a thing that like they've been doing and it's been effective, like a lot of times these people are saying like, man, I would have rather just, gone to prison for 6 years. This sucks, and it can be a number of things, it's whatever the victim wants you to do. But it's essentially, if the perp and the victim agree to do restorative justice rather than prison, then that's what they'll do. So that's one of the proposed alternatives to the traditional criminal justice system with prisons.
What about the victims who want the person to go to prison, but we've abolished prisons?
Well, the idea is that there is no prisons and, that just wouldn't happen. It would just all be mandatory restorative justice. But also I think that the prisons, just generally speaking, are kind of stupid because it's like, we should have rehabilitation centers, not prisons.
That's the thing I was gonna.
So I suppose you could, and this is where you could say like, oh, reform prison, but it's essentially just like prison of a different name. But I mean, it really saddens me how much our society hates criminals.
Yeah,
like people just think that if you're a criminal, like we don't care about you, and like that's the other issue too, right? Is like you could solve a lot of issues in prisons if you gave them more money, but no one's gonna win an election running on funding prisons. Oh, you want to help criminals?
Yeah.
Like, screw you, man. Like, nobody wants to do that. But then they want to complain about crime.
Yeah. I think like the whole Republican angle of like the crime and law has completely warped political campaigns. Like,
oh yeah.
Now it's like everything has to be around being like tough on criminals.
Mm-hmm. Especially by the 90s.
You'd be suicidal politically if you wanted to.
Yeah,
run your campaign on that.
Which is really unfortunate. And that's why, cultural change, I think, is just as important, if not more important than legislative change.
Yeah.
Cultural change is a lot more difficult, but it fuels, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I wouldn't, I don't know, I'm still skeptical about abolishing prisons.
Mm-hmm. No, same. Yeah. It's just something
I'm in favor of going for the rehabilitation model.
Yeah.
And if you want to call that not a prison anymore, and you want to call that equivalent to abolishing prisons, then fine. But I would still think of it. I mean, it's a place where you're keeping people and they're not allowed to leave until they meet certain requirements, like either in traditional prison, serving their whole sentence, time, or rehabilitation, proving that they are no longer serial killers.
You know what I can do, Wade?
What?
I will read Angela Davis's book on prison abolition and one other prison abolition book of a random choice, and I can come back on as a prison abolition expert and either tell you why it's a great idea or an awful idea.
Read her book on why it's a good idea, and then read another book on why it's a bad idea.
That's a good idea. I'll do it.
We have been talking for probably like 3.5 hours now.
Oh, wow.
Maybe 2.5. 2.5.
Oh, I thought it was only 2:30. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, that was a good conversation.
I thought so.
We could probably talk about a lot more,
Oh, yeah.
but we can save that for a future episode.
Sounds good to me.
I apologize for our conversation about rape.
Yeah. So if that was, well, you just throw a trigger warning. I think that'll be fine.
If that was incendiary to anyone.
I like that word. I really like words. I joined a linguistics subreddit on Reddit. I don't understand half of what these people like. They're way smarter than me, but it's just interesting.
Words are good. I used to in high school. I'd like every day go on to vocabulary.com and you take little quizzes and you like learn new words.
That's
every
so
single
funny.
Day. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And video games help with learning words.
Yeah, like it's like yeah.
Big words, old words.
Yeah, to sound like
rare
mysterious.
words.
Yeah, totally. Not supposed to Skyrim's good for this. Skyrim's such a good game.
Oh, it is. We could do a podcast talking about Skyrim.
Oh, that'd be good.
Well, thank you for joining me on, I think this will be episode number 4 of the Regular People podcast. Actually, one question before you go.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a book recommendation?
Oh.
You just did mention the book, but you haven't read that one yet.
Correct.
So how about a book you have read that you think other people should read?
Okay. So this is a book. I don't totally agree with its conclusions, but it's an interesting book, and I think that you'll still get something out of it. It's called Endgame by Derek Jensen. It's basically anprim literature. If you're not familiar with the term anprim, it's like anarcho-primitivism. That we should all live in an anarchist hunter-gatherer society. But he makes a lot of really interesting points.
I remember you sent me his first presuppositions or whatever.
Yeah, he lists a bunch of premises at the beginning of the book.
Premises.
Yeah,
and
because
I took issue with a few of them.
Yeah, because he's got this thing in the beginning where he talks about how all writers are propagandists, right? They're all trying to convince you of something. So he was trying to do his best to lay out exactly what he intended to convince you of. And in each chapter, he would address that. And so regardless, even if you don't agree with his conclusions, he points out a lot of interesting anecdotes about just our civilization that I think is really interesting. And he talks about why civilization itself is inherently unsustainable. So interesting read.
It does sound interesting. Although I take issue with the use of propaganda there because it's true that authors and really everybody is taking part in the war of ideas.
Yeah.
You're always trying to...
Infowars.
Not Infowars, no. But just everybody's got their own opinions on things and you show them to each other and whoever says better opinions, then hopefully you take those ones and then you go fight other people until everybody improves. But the idea of propaganda, it's trying to sway you to a cause, but I think what propaganda actually means, or at least should mean, or should be used to mean, is tricking people into believing a thing.
Yeah, trickery.
Like making people believe a thing through deception rather than just through logic.
Yeah, I think that's probably the culturally accepted definition, but I think you're right in the sense that it's not. So, if you look up in the dictionary, that's probably not what it says, but I think most people, if you were to ask them what propaganda means, they would say that.
What I said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
that's good. Because...
You're glad people agree with you, Wade?
Well, no, I'm glad people view it that way. Because to say that all authors are propagandists makes it seem like all authors are trying to deceive you.
Yeah.
When really they're just trying to give you good reasons to believe things.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I hope that podcast was enjoyable.
I found it for the listeners.
For the listeners, but yeah, it was enjoyable for me.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.